before Christmas, David Hurd became the first postman to be murdered in connection with his work in nearly 4 centuries of the postal service. It's difficult to figure why someone would want to steal pre-Christmas letters. It's harder still to imagine why anyone would be prepared to kill for them. David Hurd lived all his life in Sheffield, and all his life had gone to see United. He had 2 great passions, his football and his family.
My life now is non-existent. I don't feel as though I've got a life, because the love of my life is dead.
See ya! David had spent 31 years working for the Royal Mail.
David loved his work. He enjoyed the outdoors, driving, and he never ever complained about getting up, going to work early or coming home late at night.
At 5:50 p.m. on Monday the 15th of November, Andrea Bray was in Fraser Crescent, Woodseats.
I suddenly heard some footsteps at the back, and I turned round and saw 2 lads. I remember the 2 lads because they came up behind me and startled me. I turned round to look at them, and they'd gone down the grass verge. Both the boys were young.
Could they have been you? Next day, Tuesday the 16th of November.
Hello, love. You all right?
David used to ring me up nearly every day to see if I was all right, and he rang at 4:15, asked if I was all right.
Love you too. I'll have your supper ready for you when you get in. Bye, love.
And that was the last conversation I had with David.
Soon after calling Jean, David set off on his last collection. At 10 to 5, Andrea Bray was once again in Fraser Crescent.
I was coming home from work, and I got up to the post box at the bottom, and the mousy-haired boy I'd seen the night before was stood on the corner, just stood there with his hands in his pockets. It seemed odd because he was just loitering around.
Moments later, the van was seen travelling at high speed, following a dark Cavalier. This is half a mile away from the letterbox. It's Lindburn Road, where, as it happens, a resident was expecting a delivery.
Hey, sounds like van.
Go and have a look then.
I knew he weren't a postman. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He wasn't old enough to be a postman. He wasn't old enough to be nothing. Come here.
What's the matter?
Well, look at him there.
What's he doing?
He was about 5'6", 5'8", slim build, very fresh face. He looks as though he'd never had a shave in his life. He was a young lad. He sat in the front of the van, and he shot round as though somebody shouted him from behind.
Where's he going now?
He's walked to the back of the van.
There's another lad with him.
Somebody else.
The second guy, he was like stocky built. He was maybe about 5'8". His hair was very unkempt. He walked across to the car, which was a dark Cavalier. He got something out of the car, then moved to the back of the post office van.
Can you see what he did?
No, I don't know.
The movement seemed as though they were moving stuff out the back of the van into the back of the car.
Wait, he's coming back.
The driver of the van walked back round to the front of the van and then wiped the door handle and walked back. They got into the right on the back seat of the car and they drove off.
I'm gonna phone post office.
Meanwhile, back in Fraser Crescent, a motorist saw someone lying in the road. David Hurd was still alive, but he had massive injuries to his chest. Although an ambulance arrived in minutes, he died before he got to hospital.
I don't know if I'll ever get over it at all. But come time, and with people's help, I hope I do. But I shall never stop loving David.
John Booth, David Hurd had been hit on the back of the head. He'd then been run over in his own van. Why? I mean, was there any money on board?
No, there was 4 postal packets removed from the van, but there was no monetary value whatsoever in the van at all.
They're quite extraordinary. You've got pretty good descriptions of these two lads, particularly the younger one, whatever he is, 16 years old, something like that.
Yes, he's 16, 17 years of age, 5'6" tall, slim build, with short, dark hair, which is evenly cut, very clean shaven. Doesn't look as though he's shaved, very clean shaven.
Described as sort of baby-faced, really.
That's right.
And the other one, who's a bit, what, 2, 3 years old?
Yes, he's
like that?
18 to 20 years of age, 5'8" tall, average build, fair hair, which was very unkempt.
Now, the vehicle that they were in, it seems, this Vauxhall Cavalier, you've got a rather better description than we gave in Reconstruction.
That's right. It's a Mark II Cavalier, which ranges from X to F registrations. It's a 5-door hatchback, and it is dark in colour, and that is still to be traced.
Now, you've made a lot of inquiries in Sheffield. I know you've actually had a huge response. Everybody's been trying to help on this one. Could this have been organised from outside Sheffield?
That's right. We're now in the 9th week of the investigation. There's been a great deal of response from the local people of South Yorkshire. Many inquiries have already been undertaken, but we're now looking further afield. In particular, we've got teams of detectives working in the Manchester area and on offences that have taken place of a similar nature elsewhere in the country.
You still need to eliminate those two lads we showed in the Reconstruction who were seen there the night before. I mean, if somebody's heard something on the streets, if somebody's heard some gossip, if somebody's got some suspicions, it's always difficult, basically, to shop somebody that you know, particularly if you care for them.
Right. All I would say to those individuals that if they ring and contact myself or the incident room at Ecclesfield Police Station, any information that is given to us will be dealt with in the strictest of confidence and will be taken through and dealt with in that nature.
Okay, I should say there is an enormous reward on this, very, very big for normal criminal inquiries. £50,000 for information leading to conviction. So if you can help in any way with this case, the number here in the studio is 0500 600 600. Or you can call South Yorkshire Police at another free call number, 0500 400 200. That's 0500 400 200. Stressing, it's double murder. And the police, working with a clinical psychologist, fear that the man who did it might have killed before and might do it again. Our reconstruction, therefore, is aimed not just at prompting memories, but to warn others who might be vulnerable to the attacker. And if you've the slightest suspicion from what follows, we're asking you to call straight away. Some details of this crime haven't been made public until tonight, but in a moment we'll unveil the profile of the offender. First, the story of the victims. Almost all the people you see are the real witnesses. The day before Guy Fawkes night, and Conrad Ellum dropped in to see his girlfriend before he went to work. Samantha Bisset and her daughter Jazmine lived in Plumstead in South London.
Sam?
I saw the stain on the carpet, and when I looked in the kitchen, everything was messy, and I found this confusing. At first, I thought there was something had been spilled. Then I thought maybe there'd been a burglar in the house. And then when I went into the next room and saw Sam, I realised what had happened.
Oh, she was a loving child. A very caring kind of girl. She wanted very much to go to art college. And after her father died, we decided to go back to Scotland. Maybe the wrong decision for her, because I found out later that she went through a lot of bullying and the wrong accent, the wrong time, you know. So, of course, she wanted to leave school as soon as possible after that.
Samantha had been brought up in Gloucestershire and wanted to go back to England. She became a New Age traveller, then 5 years later decided to have a child.
When she told me that she was going to have this baby, I was delighted. And she thought I wouldn't be, because it was out of wedlock, so to speak. She doesn't want a husband per se. After Jazmine, that girl's life just changed completely. It was just unbelievable. She became just the perfect mother. She wanted the very best for that child.
Right.
Samantha met Conrad when she settled down in Plumstead, and he soon became like a father to Jazmine. But Samantha had ambitious dreams that he felt were unrealistic.
A bigger place is perfect for Jazmine. Hey, JJ, come here. Look, this could be your new school.
Conrad was a good pal, but I don't think he gave her the commitment that she wanted. She wanted to meet new people to broaden her horizons, to make sure that she took every opportunity she could to help this child.
What's wrong, sweetheart?
I can't sleep.
I'll come in a minute. Just let me finish this first. I've tried to be friendly, but I don't seem to have much in common with the housewives and mums we've met around here. I would really like to get to know people who are on a similar sort of wavelength. So please, be brave and leave a message.
Samantha placed ads in the local paper, hoping to meet friends. She was evidently lonely.
Thanks. I'm from Scotland originally. My mum still lives there. I'm a single mother. JJ's father lives on the south coast. Did I mention I was a vegetarian?
Yeah, you mentioned it in the ads. Sam and I hit it off from the start and became very good friends. We've got a lot of things in common, like we'll have a bit of a laugh in 2 weeks' time. Get on really fine.
After meeting Phil and other people in the local district, Samantha put ads in a newspaper that's London-wide. It's not clear what she expected, but she was shocked at some of the replies.
How to describe myself? I'm 27. I'm tall, blonde. I suppose you could call me upmarket. Hello? Mum, no, yeah, it's all right. I just had a funny call.
Sometimes she was feeling great. Everything was going really well. But most times she was a bit down. And I used to think, well, she's putting every effort into this child. And I used to worry about her own life. Just the drag of, you know, taking Jazmine to play school, taking her to swimming. The whole week was just around Jazmine.
The week before the murders, John Clark, a local cab driver, remembers an event while dropping Sam and Jazmine home.
What's the next ride?
OK.
matter?
It's that van. I just hope it's not who I think it is.
She seemed genuinely alarmed at this van, but I had a look around.
I think there's no one else.
And there didn't seem to be anyone there.
Yeah, okay.
So I made sure she was okay, and off she went.
Throughout that week, neighbours saw the yellow van in Heathfield Terrace. If it was yours, please call. And who were the two men with it?
I always walk past Sam's to take my dog out. I see these two guys there with a little dog a couple of times. I think they're living there now. I just assumed they were friends of Sam's.
The day Samantha died was Wednesday, November the 3rd. Conrad left at lunchtime.
See you later, yeah?
Yeah, I won't be over tonight.
Yeah, okay. Oh, don't forget we've got to go to JJ school.
The last time I saw Sam, we talked mostly about the holiday we were going to go on. We were really looking forward to it. It would have been Jazmine's first holiday. Sam's mother had lent us the money to go to the Gambia, and we were very excited about going somewhere so exotic.
At 3:30, as usual, Samantha picked up her daughter from the nursery.
Jazmine, Mummy's here. It's time to go.
The cab driver is the last person known to have seen them alive. He dropped them home at 20 to 4. We don't know what they did that evening, but Jazmine was clearly put to bed as usual. At 10:15 that night, a woman was driving past Samantha's flat.
I was coming back from my friend's house. I was driving up the hill, and as I was coming up to the top, some man just walked straight out in front of my car. I noticed it was odd because he didn't acknowledge me. When I got to the top, I looked left, and I couldn't see him, so I presumed that he had gone in towards the flat, because there couldn't have been anywhere else he could have gone.
15 minutes later, a neighbour was out walking his dog.
Yeah, I come round some.
Samantha probably died from a single knife wound. After death, her body was then moved and systematically cut. There was no evidence of robbery or rape. Jazmine had been suffocated in her bed. Terribly sad case, and in a way even more tragic, because Mike Banks' Jazmine, who was 4.5, was sexually abused. Now, that's not been made public until tonight. Why are you so anxious that we should publish that now?
Well, I'm very afraid that this man will murder again, and I think I'm appealing to people that might have an inkling they might know the person that could be responsible for these murders. I'm looking for a friend, a relative, perhaps even a wife or a girlfriend. And once they realise what has happened to this poor young child, a defenceless young child of 4 years of age, then I'm hoping they'll contact us and help us with this major inquiry.
Well, to give you some idea, we're also able to tell you for the first time tonight something of the background, the profile of this man. He's thought to be over 25. He's likely to have used contact ads, and maybe you've met him through one. He would have been unlikely to sustain stable relationships, and indeed probably has been violent to women and may have hurt prostitutes. A possible history of animal mutilation as well, but on the surface he'll probably appear quite normal. He's likely to have a normal job. He is, though, as the superintendent says, likely to reoffend. If he had gone to prostitutes, if he had attacked some sort of woman before, I mean, what sort of attack? What would it be that she'd recognise in his behaviour?
Well, I think rather than having sex possibly with a prostitute, or perhaps even to somebody he's met through a contact magazine, he'd most likely want to hurt them as opposed to having sex.
Now, Paul Britton's a clinical psychologist. How much, you've studied this man in some detail, as much as you can, how much do you think you know him?
I think we know quite well what was going through his mind at the time of the offence, but I would like him to tell me how he got started on the pathway that led him eventually to harm Samantha. I would also like him to tell me why it was necessary for him to harm the child as well.
When you say you'd like him to tell you, I mean, he's not very likely to ring out and say, "Can I speak to Paul Britton, please?" and here are his answers. Or is he, do you think?
I think that there is a possibility that he might want to do that.
Is there anything else that you can tell us about him? I mean, will he share his interest with other people, do you think? Will anyone else sort of recognise, hey, you know, we had photographs of this, or, you know, is there anything else that he...
There is a possibility that this man will use a very specialist form of pornography, that focusing on the mutilation of women. And I think anyone living with him or in close proximity to him might be aware of this, and that would be important.
Superintendent, there are a lot of people that you want to eliminate, and I must stress, it is to eliminate. These aren't people you suspect. The yellow van, first of all, was pretty clear. You've got to try and eliminate whoever was there in that. There was also a man who's been seen with her, with Samantha, and you've got some pictures of him.
Yes, that's correct. There's an art impression. I don't know if it's showing up on the screen. The first one is a man. He's got a ponytail. You can't see it there, but he's also got this earring in his left ear, which looks like a cross. Now, this is believed to possibly have been a man who was going with Samantha during the summer, and in fact, he's very similar to the description of one of the men seen in the yellow van. Now, whether it's one and the same person,
Let's look at the other picture now. If that's you, you're not under suspicion, but please call us straight away. We really do need to contact you. And also, if you were outside the flat in Plumstead, it's Heathfield Terrace, Wednesday, November the 23rd. If there's any reason you should recall that and you were wearing a white mac, a long white mac with a collar up right down to your shoes almost, you were seen there probably waiting for somebody, please call, again, you're not under suspicion. If you can help in any way, call Mike Banks or any of his colleagues, or you can ask for a BBC researcher here, direct in the studio, 0500 600 600. Incidentally, if you ask to speak to Paul Britton, please don't waste our time. It's far too serious for practical jokes or pranks, and we've got ways of eliminating people who are trying that anyway. Or you can call the Instant Room in Thamesmead. That's 081 312 1200. That's 081 312 1200.
Paul Logan, a young family man, father of 2 children, was killed just 2 days before Christmas. Northumbrian police are in the studio with us tonight in the hope that someone watching this programme will know who killed him and why. Our reconstruction begins near Consett in County Durham at a Chinese restaurant where Paul worked. For the past 2 years, Paul Logan had worked most evenings as a delivery driver for the Golden Flower Chinese takeaway.
Looking sharp, Tony. What have you been up to?
Went into Newcastle again last night. Didn't get back until 8.
Now wait, Tony. What you been up to?
You had to know Paul to appreciate Paul. Paul was a very good son, a very good father.
Paul lived not far from the takeaway with Pamela Hughes and their 2 children, Michael and Natalie. He and Pamela had been together for nearly 10 years.
He always seemed to be laughing all the time with Michael, always carrying on, and he always took Michael everywhere. He was like, everyone used to call him his little shadow.
I mean, Paul had his good points. He had his bad points like everyone. Paul wasn't perfect, but he was a very loving person, and he was loved very much by this family.
Over the past 3 months, Paul's car had been vandalised several times. Perhaps someone had a grudge against him. It's early evening on Thursday the 23rd of December.
How are you then, Michael? There's your dinner. There you go.
You take out your mouth.
Lemonade. All right?
Oh, we love sausages, don't we?
Hey? Yeah. How are you then?
Hey, boy,
come on. Yeah. It's going to be one of your late nights again, Paul.
Oh, it's not exactly a quiet time of year. I'll be wanting a sweet and sour. I'll pop in around 11, see if you're all right.
Right.
All right, I better be off.
He was busy that time of year because it was like Christmas time. I had been singing carols, been singing jingle bells and everything before he went to work.
Bye-bye to you, baby. Try, see you later.
Hello, Golden Flower. 1 king prawn. Chicken and chassis.
Oh, leave for a visit tonight. Oh, great. And such a lovely evening for it.
We're very busy. Go back in the kitchen.
Hello, Golden Flower. Sorry, can you spell that? Blue House Farm. Can I take your number and get the driver to call you back for directions?
My boyfriend and I were walking down Benfield Road towards Snows Green Road, and we noticed a Ford Fiesta XR2, and then we saw a man in the phone box who was trying not to draw attention to himself. I noticed him because he was not on the phone as we walked past.
Paul, can you check address?
Blue House Farm. That rings a bell. That's off Newlands. Someone...
I said you phoned them.
As I crossed the road, the man in the phone box was actually on the phone.
The Blue House Farm. I see, right. That's on the left down Newlands Road. OK, see you soon.
The farm was about 5 minutes' drive away. It's now nearly 10 o'clock.
Who's that?
Chinese takeaway.
We never ordered Chinese. Someone's made a mistake. Which Chinese?
Shotley Bridge.
We never ordered any. You better go back and check.
The owners of Blue House Farm had left their gate open that night, but when Paul drove back down the track, someone had shut it.
May, don't take any more deliveries until Paul gets back.
Is this the Golden Flower takeaway? Oh, can you help me? I'm from Blue House Farm, and there's one of your drivers here. Now, I didn't order any food, and I want to know why he's been at my front gate for nearly half an hour.
Hello?
It's Tony. Has Paul been around?
No, why?
He's been on a delivery just before 10 o'clock and he hasn't come back.
He used to toot the horn as he passed the house to let us know he was finished and he was going home. He done that every night. His dad said, he hasn't tooted tonight. And it was a terrible night, and my husband went to the gate.
Hello? Elsie, I'm really worried. Paul's not come home, and Tony's phoned to say he's not back from a delivery. He's been gone for nearly an hour and a half.
But it was when I got the phone call from Pamela that Paul hadn't returned. I was very concerned because I knew it wasn't Paul not to return from a delivery. My husband and David went to Chinese to talk to Tony. They asked him to take him straight to where the car was.
Hello? Can I have the police, please?
I really thought they'd find Paul and bring Paul back. Or Paul had maybe crashed in the car or something. I prayed to God so much Paul would come back.
Elsie.
To Tango 123, you in location on the Shotley Bridge, Newlands Road, where that major search
Paul had been killed by a heavy blow to the head.
Whatever they've done to Paul, they've done to the whole family. I can't describe to anybody how I feel. It has just ripped my family into pieces. You see people, but what's inside, you can't describe. I've known sorrow, I've known pain, but this is worse. It's a lot worse. You can't describe what goes in your head. There's times you think you're going mad. Things that go in your head because you need to know why such a thing has happened.
Well, Mr. Wilson, there's no doubt really that Paul was deliberately targeted. The question is why?
We haven't established a motive yet, but we have found that there are a lot of people who hold a grudge against Paul Logan.
A lot of people saw the man in the phone box that night. What did he look like?
He's white, about 6 foot tall, 30 years of age, muscular build, wearing a black leather jacket, scruffy appearance, collar-length dark hair, receding at the front, and the driver of the Fiesta vehicle was of similar build, again wearing a black leather jacket and a scruffy appearance.
So did anyone see the red Fiesta that night? Any other witnesses? There's another vehicle seen near Blue House Farm. Now this is very significant.
Yes, at the time of the murder, witnesses saw the victim's car, and just prior to that, they saw a red or orange-coloured Astra motor vehicle in a track about 150 yards away. We would ask the people in that vehicle to come forward to the police, and there are reasons why they may not wish to do so, but I can tell them that we will treat their contact with us in strictest confidence.
Right. There is a reward. The family's got a reward together in this case.
Yes, the family of the victim will offer £10,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the persons responsible.
Mr Wilson, thank you. There does seem little doubt that somebody knows who committed this murder. Please do ring us if you can help at all. We're on 0500 600 600 here in the studio. The number for the incident room at Wickham Police Station in Northumbria is 091 221 9319. That's 091, the code for Tyneside, 221 9319.
Our first case this month is one of those bewildering crimes where it's hard to see a motive. It's difficult to imagine why anyone would want to cause the tragedy they did. As you watch our reconstruction, is there someone you can help eliminate? And is there anyone you suspect could be involved? It took place in Suffolk 4 months ago. At the age of 21, Karen Hales had been a mother for 18 months. She lived all her life in Ipswich in Suffolk, worked part-time in Boots, but she spent every hour she could with Emily.
Karen was a very caring mother. She was very bubbly, real outgoing girl, full of confidence and devoted to Emily and her mother. Wasn't she, Jerry?
Yes, she was. She's very special to all of us. A lovely daughter and my best friend. She's very caring, too caring. Thought of other people more than she did herself.
I met Karen at school. One day she came up to me and asked me out very openly. That made me feel good. That's the sort of person she is, to sort of come up to you and sort of speak her mind. We went out with each other for 6 years. We were very happy together in them years. When she got pregnant, we were very happy. So we went and bought a house.
They bought a starter home in Ipswich in Lavenham Road and had lived there for a couple of years. On Saturday, the 20th of November, Peter had gone out with workmates. Karen was too frightened to call out.
Peter?
Sorry, were you asleep?
Oh, no. No, how did it go?
Oh, all right, we just went up the Swan. Everything right here?
Well, no, I had a bit of a fright. I was sitting in the living room and I thought I heard a noise. So I went to the front door and somebody was trying that.
Although their house hadn't been targeted up to now, there had been a spate of break-ins in the area.
No, they weren't there for very long.
It's probably only kids anyway.
Yeah.
The next day was Sunday, the 21st of November.
Karen, where are my socks?
They're in the second drawer. Right, come on then. Put that down. Go and say so long to Daddy then. There we go.
All right, love, see you later.
All right. Oh, wait.
Oh, I've still got time to take you over to your mum's if you want to go.
No, it's all right. Me and Emma are going to clean, aren't we?
Oh, all right, then. I'll see you later. Bye-bye, Emily.
Peter was on a late shift and had to go to work at 4 o'clock that afternoon.
you doing? Oh, Ta. Ta? Oh, are you eating bread? I have some, and I have some.
Near Ipswich town centre is the bus garage where Peter works. At 4:15 or so, Karen's parents called to see him.
Is that you, Peter? Oh, all right. How are you doing?
All right. Wondered if you could have a look at the car. It's starter motor's playing up again.
Ah, no problem.
Peter, you got a spanner?
No, Nigel's got it.
Is Karen at home?
Yeah, I asked if she wanted to come over to you, but she said she'd rather stay at home and get some housework done.
Oh, well, we'll pop round and see her in a minute.
Two locals were taking a short cut into Lavenham Road, near Karen and Peter's house.
We saw a man. I was going to ask the time, but I didn't get a chance because he was walking so fast. All I remember about him was he was wearing a parka with grey fur around the hood.
The man walked out onto the main London road, where a couple were driving home.
She looked better, but she still looks tired. What on earth is he doing?
We noticed a chap barely agitated in the central reservation. As we got closer to him, I thought he's going to make a dash for it, and sure enough, right at the last minute, he did.
I thought he was suicidal. He was wearing a dark parka coat with a grey trim. He appeared to be slim build, dark short hair, around about 20, 25.
About now, the two boys were passing Karen's home.
We were walking across the green when I looked over at a house. Is there smoke over there?
That's just condensation.
A local resident was in Chantry Park, about 400 yards away.
Hello, Risky. Come on, then. There's a good boy.
I decided to take the dog for a walk, and had just left the car park and noticed a person moving in the distance. I noticed him because he was running bent over. And then he hesitated and stopped and stared. And I just felt that he was acting strangely and thought he'd been up to no good. I suppose he was aged about 20 to 30 years old, and he was wearing a blue-grey parka coat with a hood.
About the same time, Karen's parents reached Lavenham Road.
Karen? Karen? It's funny, it's open.
Karen was discovered by her father. She'd been stabbed several times, and her body had been set alight. Her daughter Emily was in the same room, but had not been injured.
If there's any mum out there that is hiding anything, they just want to imagine what it's like. Every morning, Emily cries for Mummy. During the day, she's asking where Mummy is. We, Peter and I, do the best we can, and Graham, but we don't take the place of Mummy.
John Saunders, why? I mean, what's your guess? Why did it happen?
We don't really know what the motive was in this case. As you can see, Karen was a loving, caring person with no enemies at all. What we do know is that items were stolen from the house, so we cannot rule out the possibility that it was a burglary.
This is an identical purse to the one that was stolen. Now, this is a fairly common sort of purse. Lots of these around in Britain, so please don't ring us just because you've seen one. But we are interested, presumably, if you've seen one thrown away around the Ipswich area.
Yes, certainly anything of that nature that's been discarded since November, we would be extremely interested in, or whether anyone's been in possession of that.
And a couple of knives as well. Again, there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of these in the UK. They don't just ring us about these. They're laser knives. It's just if you've seen them thrown away in a bin or under a hedge or something like that in a way that could be connected to this. You want more witnesses in Lavenham Road, I gather, still, despite all your extensive inquiries?
Yes, we've traced over 1,000 people in connection with the inquiry, but we still have people unidentified that we can't put names to.
This guy wearing the parka, just go into his description a bit more for us.
Yes, he's described by various witnesses, and it may be that there's more than one person wearing a parka, but it's a parka with a fur hood. He's aged between 20 and 30, about 5 feet 10 tall, slim build, with thin, dark hair, which is cut fairly short.
And whoever killed Karen would have been presumably heavily bloodstained?
Yes, I'm certain that that's the case, that clothing would have been heavily bloodstained, and I would appeal for anyone who knows of somebody who was bloodstained on that day or who's discarded their normal clothing to contact us.
Sunday the 21st of November, there's a reward, as though that was necessary in a case as, really despicable as this. If you can help in any way, the number here in the studio is 0500 600 600. Or you can ring the incident room at Suffolk Police Headquarters. That's 0473 613 577. There it is, 0473 613 577.
Well, our first case tonight has been baffling police for the past 3 months, simply because all their investigations have failed to reveal any possible motive. It's the murder of 47-year-old Derick Kiley at his flat in South London. By all accounts, he was a man with many friends and no enemies that anyone's been able to discover. Derick's girlfriend died last year, and our reconstruction begins at Hither Green Cemetery in southeast London. Derick was an immensely private person. He'd had a girlfriend for 2 years, but few of his friends knew about her until she died suddenly of a heart attack last November, aged only 37. His brother remembers Derick was devastated.
Derick was really, really broke up. I've never seen him like this. He couldn't speak. He didn't seem to know what day it was. He was definitely in shock. To see him upset like that, falling apart, he really was a bad scene for me and for Derick, I think. We lost touch over the years, and we was just getting back together again, which would have been terrific. He was a good guy, Dell. He'd do things like, he'd stop the traffic to let an old lady across the road. He was a real old softy, really, although he didn't give that in his appearance.
Derick, or Dell as he was known to his friends and family, had spent most of his life in South London. He'd lived in his flat in Harpenden Road in West Norwood for more than 10 years.
Yeah, tell me about it. Look, don't worry yourself. Yeah, well, look, we'll sort something out. Well, leave it to me. Hang on, mate, look, I've got to go. There's someone at the door. I'll bill you later, yeah? Ta-da.
Derick's friends knew they were always welcome to drop in for a chat.
Hello, Juice.
Hi, Beth.
Come here, you.
He used to actually call his flat the Haven. It was where people could go with their problems. I've known Dell for about 4 years. He was a very good friend to me. He was a very good friend to everybody. But although he did have a lot of friends, I felt that in the last 6 months he did get quite lonely, and he seemed quite desperate for people to be around him. In actual fact, he seemed quite frightened of being on his own.
While people confided in him, Derick kept his own problems very much to himself. But there's no doubt that something had been worrying him.
Before you threw that out.
Now I've stuck it back together again. Painted the flowers on myself. It's all right, isn't it?
He was always mending things, always fixing things. I used to call him Mr. Fix-It.
Rolly?
No, thanks. He used to spend most of his time actually in his flat. He used to call it his control centre, because where he used to sit he had everything to hand. His remote control, his answering machine and his telephone.
Hello? Yeah, all right, mate. What's the mileage?
Derick's main love was cars, and he made a business of doing up and selling second-hand vehicles.
Yeah, we can do something, yeah. Consider it done.
He was a familiar sight in the street, working on various old cars outside his house.
Hi, Del.
Hello, girl, how are you?
All right, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad. Hey, there's something I've got to say to you. That little cat of yours.
He was such a good neighbour to us. We used to say that the best things about West Norwood were the fishmonger and Del.
It cost me a fortune in cat food as well.
I had a smash in my car and Del just completely took over. He just did everything.
Oh, it's really good since you fixed it.
Yeah, well, you should get onto the garage, you know. They ripped you off something rotten.
Yeah, I know. I keep meaning to ring them.
Yeah, well, do it and let me know what they say.
He was a real mixture. I mean, he came across as really macho, and yet you'd go round there and he'd be doing watercolours of cottages and sailing ships, which came as a real surprise. You know, it was quite a contrast to his image. I mean, I think he thought he was quite hard, but I certainly never saw him being aggressive, and he was a real honey to us.
It's just after New Year, Sunday the 2nd of January. A neighbour remembers seeing a man coming from the direction of Derick's house that night and getting into a black 7 Series BMW. The witness describes the man as of Asian appearance with a ponytail and in his mid-20s. The next afternoon, around 3:30, a local man remembers seeing Derick in the street.
I was walking up Oldswater Road towards Harpenden Road when I saw him talking to a man in a light blue Sierra. The man he was talking to had slicked back hair and a ponytail. He was about in his mid-30s and had Mediterranean-type skin. I also remember that the car tax was out of date.
Later that same evening, Derick was at a pie stall in Crystal Palace Parade, a few miles from where he lived.
Tea and coffee? Yeah, please, Ron. Well, Dill used to come up at night to see me on odd occasions, have a chat. All right, Dill.
Not really.
But on this occasion he come up, he looked down and out and didn't seem that he was in his right mind. Something was worrying him. He said to me, "I'll see you later," and then off he went. And that was the last time I see him.
That was the last time anyone is known to have seen Derick alive. Half an hour later, back in Harpenden Road, it's shortly after midnight. This woman lives a few doors away from Derick's flat.
I heard what I thought was a woman scream. I went to the window and looked out, but I couldn't see anything. So I decided, as it was a woman that I thought had screamed, I'd go outside and check it out. I went out, had a good look round. I couldn't see anything, so I decided I'd better go back home.
The shouting seemed to have come from the general direction of Derick's flat.
There's nobody available to speak to you at the moment. If you'll leave your name and any message, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Del. I'm a bit worried about where you are. Give me a ring when you get back. Thanks, bye.
Over the next 3 days, Derick's friends became increasingly worried as he failed to return their calls. It was Thursday, January the 6th, when Derick's body was discovered in the flat. He died from multiple stab wounds.
I do honestly miss him so much. We had so much going then between us. We were very, very close, and I think he was going to come back into the family, and we could have been a family again. It would have been tremendous to have had Del back. All I can say is I do really miss him very much.
Well, Mr. Younger, as I said at the beginning, you've been really struggling to find a motive here.
That's right. We don't know why anyone would want to kill Derick Kiley, but I'm sure somebody does know, and that would greatly assist us in finding out who did kill Derick.
There were a few things stolen from his flat.
Yes, there was a black bag containing a large amount of cash and a wristwatch, quite an antique-type wristwatch, about 1935s. It's slightly more oblong than the one being shown, but in point of fact, it was very valuable.
So this watch could be really vital. It's interesting that we actually couldn't find one identical, but it's an oval version of this.
Yes.
There's no manufacturer's mark on it.
No, that's right. But if anyone's been offered that, certainly since the 6th of January, we'd certainly like to hear from them.
It could be very helpful. But you don't actually believe that robbery was the primary motive for Derick's murder?
No, Derick was a very cautious man, and he wouldn't let anyone into his flat unless he knew them, and certainly there was no forcible entry, so I'm convinced that he knew his attacker, whoever it was.
And whoever did attack him stabbed him many, many times, so there'd have been quite a lot of blood.
Yes, and I would appeal again to anyone who, on the early hours of Tuesday, the 4th of January, came home with blood-stained clothing. There must be someone out there to whom that would apply, and if someone could ring in with that information, we'd be most grateful.
The one person you know so far that you need to eliminate is the Asian man with the ponytail who was seen coming from the direction of Derick's flat on the 2nd of January in the evening.
Yes, we know he was a regular visitor. He may have nothing to do with the murder of Derick Kiley, but we'd still like to trace this individual to eliminate him and find out what Derick was doing on the Sunday.
And we've got a description of him.
That's right. He's about 25 years of age, slim build, 6 foot tall, and the video fit is a good likeness to him.
Now, if anybody can help in this case, there's a reward as well, isn't there?
There is a very substantial reward offered by Crime Stoppers. Yes, that's right.
Well, if you can help with any information to take this investigation further, please do ring us. The number here in the studio is 0500 600 600, or you can contact Gypsy Hill Police Station direct, and that number is 071 326 1212. That's 071 326 1212. This is an indiscriminate, futile murder. It's the kind of crime that happens, luckily, very rarely, but that's no consolation for the victim's family and friends. Shirley Leach was a pensioner. She lived in Greater Manchester, and our reconstruction begins in the small hours of Friday, the 7th of January, in Bury Town Centre.
Yeah, it's a good night down there on a Thursday.
That's not bad. Have your mates gone home?
Yeah, they got a cab earlier.
God, I'm stuffed.
Here, have you got any fags left?
Yeah, just the one. We'll share it. I'll have to go to the loo first, though. Is there a bog round here?
Yeah, there's one in the bus station.
Come with us. It's a bit dark.
The couple walked to the toilets at the Bury Interchange, the town's central bus depot.
Hello? Yeah. Where is it? Yeah, OK, I'll be right over.
OK, John, what we've got? Looks like a bad one. There's a female in the toilet. She's aged between...
Well, our first priority was to preserve the scene of the crime. We needed to protect the forensic material which was inside there, so we had to make sure it was as secure as possible. I always try to keep a distance emotionally from these sort of things. But I must admit that the first thing I thought when I saw the body lying there was that we've got a poor old lady who's probably never done anybody any harm in her life. She goes into the toilet and her life ends there. We didn't actually identify the body for about 14 hours. It was then that we discovered she was an old-age pensioner from Bury. Her name was Shirley Leach.
Shirley had lived most of her life in Bury and had 2 grown-up children. She'd been widowed nearly 2 years ago when her husband died of cancer.
Hello, Shirley. Parcel for you. She was a very good neighbour, great neighbour. I often used to say to her, I hope you never remove from here, because I'd miss you. The garden's nice and tidy. Is it? Oh. Yes. Oh, I thought it was just a lovely, kind person who would help anyone, you know, if she could. Do you know it's cold out there, and I'm going uptown later. Are you? Yes. Going to meet our Darren.
Darren was her only grandchild. The 2 of them had always been close.
Darren, it's my favourite. Listen, who's it back again? It's that Culture Club.
Oh no, Gran, it's Culture Beat.
Culture Beat, that's it. Hey, I'm going to get it.
She wasn't typical Gran. She was young for her age. She loved music. She knew more about music than me. She was well up to date with it all. And she loved buying records. She was more like a mother to me. We used to have a laugh together and spend plenty of time together. We could go out and have a good laugh, have a joke. Last time I saw her on 6th of January, when we went to visit my mother in hospital, and we decided to go to the pub.
Shirley's journey home meant taking 2 bus rides, and she and Darren decided to warm up with a drink before setting off.
Thanks, love.
Yeah?
Well, that's all right. Put it in your pocket.
Cheers, Gran. Yeah, she used to look after me. If I was short of money, she used to help me out a bit.
Oh, before I forget, here you are. Got something for you.
With my mum being in hospital, she bought me a few things.
It's only milk and lemons. Hey, we'd better drink up if we're going to catch our bus.
It's getting off for 9 already, isn't it? I could talk to her about anything, any problems that we used to discuss together. We caught the 9 o'clock bus together. I got off at my usual stop, and that was the last time I saw her go.
Shirley's bus carried on towards the interchange. Around the same time, a local man, Gary O'Neill, was arriving at the interchange.
I was just on my way home from work, and I was just walking through the bus station towards the gents' toilets, and I saw a man standing outside. It was quite unusual for anyone to be stood there at that time of night. He was late 40s, early 50s. He was wearing either a grey or beige raincoat and a cap, and he had a green bag on his shoulder. As I left, he just faced the bus station.
It was about 9:10 when Shirley got to the interchange. The connecting bus she'd intended to catch home had just gone. Two of the hospital cleaners recognised her at the bus stop.
Have we missed bus? Yeah. We're always missing it. 4 times out of 5. What time's next to? It'll have to be the 25 to 10 now, won't it? Oh, that's another half hour. Hey, let's go and have a look at the 90 timetable, see what time that goes.
Shirley was obviously annoyed at missing the bus, and a few minutes later I saw her crossing interchange. I wondered where she was going, and then I assumed she was going to the toilet, and that's the last time we saw Shirley.
About 15 minutes later, some teenagers were chatting nearby. The scream came from the direction of the toilets.
What was that? Probably someone messing about or something. Oh, look, it's gone.
At around the same time, these two sisters were on their way home after a game of bingo.
We'd have caught that. I told you we shouldn't have played that last game. Am I going to get home now? Me and Joan were talking. She was worried she'd missed the bus. And I happened to glance to the ladies' toilets. We're going to get home now.
Oh, look, Joan, what's that man doing going in ladies? Oh, look, what's he doing now?
He had his back to me the whole time. He were around 5'6" to 5'9". He went out of my view then.
Police believe it was around this time that Shirley Leach was murdered. No one seems to have seen the man leave the interchange.
We're obviously looking for somebody who is mentally disturbed. He needs to be caught very quickly. He needs medical help. The particular worry we have is that this was a horrendous crime to commit. She was butchered, she was sexually assaulted, and I just thought, what's the world coming to?
Well, Mr. Maskew, that was such a tragic case. Shirley used to make that journey every night for 2 weeks to visit her daughter in hospital, and that was the first time she'd ever missed her connecting bus.
That's right. It was the first time she'd ever missed a bus. But even if it had happened on other occasions, quite often she'd been accompanied by other members of the family when she'd made that journey. So if that had happened on other nights, it would not have made any difference.
It was the first time she was on her own as well.
Indeed, yes.
What sort of person do you think could have done this?
Clearly a very dangerous individual. If anything, Shirley was a little bit more timid than the actress portrays it in the reconstruction, and certainly she was smaller in build. She was clearly a vulnerable victim, who I think was selected for that particular purpose.
3 people altogether have described the man we saw there in the film loitering at the very interchange. Do you think all those 3 people actually are describing the same man?
Certainly the descriptions are very similar, the one exception being about the top coat that he's seen when he's first seen outside the gents' toilets. That anorak with the drawstring is not visible on the other 2 sightings, but nevertheless the remaining description is so similar that I think it could well be the same man, although obviously I can't exclude the possibility there may be more than one.
The last sighting, in terms of time, was at about 10:10 that Thursday night, wasn't it?
That's right, that's at 10:10, and it's a young girl who's waiting at a bus queue when she sees the man walking across the interchange, and he is in fact leaving the interchange at that point onto Angolan Way. He's holding to his face a white tissue or a white handkerchief, which is blood-stained, and he could well have been bleeding from the face.
What precisely is the description you have now of this man?
It's a compilation from the 3 witnesses, and he's aged between 40 and 50 years of age, 5'7" to 5'8" inches tall, and certainly on the night of the murder, he was wearing a sports coat or suit-type jacket, a flat cap, or as a hairstyle which creates that impression.
Any indication at all for you where he might have come from?
Now that's a difficult one. It's a busy bus station where the incident occurred, and it's also the Metrolink for the tram services in Manchester. He could in fact have come from anywhere in the country.
How are you hoping that viewers tonight might be able to help?
Hoping by someone who may recognise the man from the description and the reconstruction. It may be someone they know, particularly females. It may be someone that they feel uncomfortable in his presence. He meets the criteria in terms of age and height, and it may be some other thing that means that they're connecting with this incident. And if that's the case, I would ask that the police contact.
And of course anybody else who may have seen the man answering that description on that night.
Anyone else with any information whatsoever. It's such a dreadful crime as this that I really do appeal to people, if they've got any information, to make contact with me.
Mr Musgrave, thank you very much. And just to remind you, we're talking about the evening of Thursday, the 6th of January at the Bury Interchange bus terminal. If you can help, please call us here in the studio. This is the number here, 0500 600 600, or you can ring the incident room direct, and that number is 061 856 8383. That's 061 for Manchester, 856 8383.
It's an unsolved murder, at least unsolved till now. The victim, Larry Burt from Ramsgate in Kent, was so well liked, according to a friend, we'll probably have to have St Paul's Cathedral for the funeral.
Larry, you got those invoices?
Won't be a minute. Janet, can you come and have a look at this? The dropout's far too high in this relay. You reckon it's that one? All right.
Larry Burt worked as a quality assurance controller. Part of his job was to test products before they were sent out to clients.
What could I do without you? Shouldn't that stay here? Thank you. Open your eyes. Can you hear me? Obviously not. Right, he's unconscious. What do we do now?
Mouth to mouth.
You're jumping the gun. We've got to check for breathing first.
Larry was a branch officer of the Red Cross and twice a year led courses in first aid.
I run the Red Cross here in Margate. I very often help Larry with his lectures. He was full of fun, he was loved by his students, and many of them have stayed friends over the years.
Now, clearly there's nothing happening in this poor chap. So, only then do you follow the ventilation procedures. Right, change the subject. I need a casualty. Who fancies being tied up? Jean?
Oh, dear.
Need a hand? Larry. How are you doing? You just got back then?
What's this then? Slimming again?
It's only for the week. My engine blew up.
We've known Larry now for about 25 years. He lost his parents during the war in an air raid, and now, of course, his adopted parents are also dead. So he was totally alone. He had no relatives at all, and he just adopted practically everybody of his friends as relatives, and he had a heck of a lot of friends.
Yes, in fact, I would say that his death has been a great personal tragedy to a great many people. We had an awful lot in common.
You had a common interest in art, didn't you?
Oh, yes, we had a common interest in art. Lots of things we were interested in and encouraged to be interested in by Larry.
He introduced us to bird watching, basically.
Yes, you know, he was enthusiastic about all sorts of things, and he managed to convey it to people. He had a zest for life, without a doubt.
Oh, well, look, I won't see you tomorrow, because I'm going up London to have a mooch around. Gonna take this on the train. So, I'm going to see you Sunday, though.
Right. Okay, fine.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
On Saturday, the 26th of February, Larry boarded the 9:52 from Dumpton Park to London.
Fine, tickets, please.
Oh, sorry, cheap to return to Victoria, please.
£15.70. Thank you.
It's not known where in London Larry meant to visit, but he clearly intended to return that same day.
Ticket. Fine, tickets, please.
20 minutes later, the same guard, Ian Williams, remembers seeing someone sitting opposite Larry.
Although I didn't see them talking, it looked to me as if I'd interrupted something. I remember she had a 5-day return London to Whitstable.
Larry was just the sort of person who might have started up a conversation with a stranger. If that woman was you, and if he mentioned his plans for the day, it's obviously important. At any rate, please call us.
Larry visited London every couple of months, but from here it's all conjecture. He probably cycled from Victoria out towards the East End. In the past, he's talked of visiting St Catherine's Dock, as another of his interests was boats and chandlery. Maybe you saw Larry cycling around Wapping that afternoon. In Wapping High Street stands the Town of Ramsgate pub. Larry may have been there in the past. Did you see him here in February? Larry had binoculars for bird watching and was an accomplished photographer. He was also a remarkable artist and would often turn his drawings into cards for his friends. Perhaps you noticed Larry by the river that afternoon. With his sketchpad, camera and binoculars, he would have been distinctive. The next day, overlooking the river at the rear of a warehouse known as the Old Pump House in St Catherine's Way in Wapping, Larry's body was discovered. It's likely he was murdered in this yard above the river, probably the day before. He'd been strangled.
In fact, Dave, Inspector Michael, he was strangled with a scarf left at the scene, identical to this one. And it wasn't his scarf?
No, it wasn't his scarf. The person who strangled him would have been the owner of that scarf. The scarf was well worn, so they've had it for some time, and we'd like anybody who knows somebody who went out with a scarf similar to this, who came home without it, to get in touch with us.
26th of February, Saturday 26th of February, possibly Sunday the 27th of February. The bike that Larry had is missing. I mean, it's conceivable that whoever killed him came home with a bike as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's the metallic blue Man's Abbey Racer Tourer bicycle. It was modified since Larry had it, and it had chrome mudguards, back pannier, and the handlebar tape was blue.
Now, what other things were taken? Because you suspect the motive is robbery, and quite a lot of belongings disappeared.
There's a good chance. We would really like anybody who knows about the other missing property, which includes a Swallow binoculars, which is adjustable.
Like these?
That's correct.
These are 8x21s.
Yes, also a 35mm automatic compact camera with built-in zoom lens. His personal belongings in his wallet, identity cards, a black rucksack with possibly sketching materials. Anybody who's had this property, who knows anything about it, please get in touch with us.
In truth, knowing that the stuff was stolen, they might be quite reluctant to get in touch with you if it's passed through their hands. They don't want to be done for receiving stolen property.
Okay. Obviously, that's quite understandable, but really we're just concerned with Larry's murder, and we would encourage these people to come forward. Please get in touch with us.
Now, since you don't know really where he went between Victoria Station and being found near St Catherine's Dock, you need to find anybody who met him at all that day, or perhaps any other day in London when he was on his...
We know he had a good knowledge of Wapping, the East End. Also, he had a broader knowledge of London. But anybody who was with him that weekend or knows anybody who was with Larry, please get in touch with us.
Inspector, thank you. If you can help in any way with this case, the number here in the studio is 0500 600 600, or you can ring the incident room direct. That's on 071 488 5241. 071 488 5241.
As we say quite often on this programme, cases where a person is murdered by someone unknown to them are very rare. Our next appeal is sadly one of the exceptions. We've changed the name of the key witness in the reconstruction which follows, which takes place in Wakefield on the day of the murder. It's Tuesday, 15th of March. Wendy Speakes had lived here for nearly 11 years. Every morning she followed the same routine before she left for work.
My mum was very happy living on her own. She had lots of friends, but she was a very private person. She kept herself to herself, and really, she didn't have any particular best friends as such. It was more myself and my sister. It was the three of us together, really. My mum used to call us the Three Musketeers, and she was like the big sister. I was very proud to have her as my mum. She always took care about how she looked and her house. Her house was always very smart and neat. And she'd got everything she wanted in her life.
Wendy was the receptionist at a marketing company on the outskirts of Wakefield. She set off for the bus stop each morning at about 8:30. An hour later, less than a mile from Wendy's house, Julie Smith was waiting for her bus to work.
I noticed this man coming towards me. He passed by really close. I remember he was acting strange, looking about him a lot. By then, my bus had arrived and I didn't see him again after that.
Look, I'm sorry about this, David. It's just that with Tracey living down south and I'm 52 next birthday.
Recently, Wendy had decided to leave Wakefield, and at work that afternoon, she handed in her notice.
And thanks for all the work you've done for us.
Oh, thanks, David. Thank you.
It's now 5 o'clock. Julie had finished work and was on her way home. As the bus pulled up at her stop, she herself didn't notice the man she'd seen that morning still hanging around.
I realised that he was watching the young lady what lives next door, and he stood there for a moment.
Hello, I was wondering if you could help me. I've been walking around for 2 hours trying to find Flanshaw Drive. Any idea where it is?
I'm not quite sure. I think it might be down off Flanshaw Road.
He was acting strange, shifting around, and that's when I remembered him from the morning. I realised he was lying about the amount of time he'd been in the area. It made me nervous.
I didn't get all that. Could you get me a pen and paper?
I'm better off just saying it to you.
I remember he looked in his late 30s. He had brown eyes and was sort of medium build. I think he had a local accent.
Turn left down by the hotel.
By now I was really scared and I didn't know what I was saying. I thought he might push me inside.
Could I come in and use your phone?
No, definitely not. Anyway, my boyfriend's in the kitchen and he wouldn't like it. Look, I'm really sorry. I can't help you anymore. Okay?
I never normally open the door to strangers, but I suppose he caught me off guard.
Wendy's bus from work would have arrived at Wakefield town centre at around 6 o'clock. From here, it was just a short walk home. You may have seen her walking along Bourne Lane. This silk screen printer was nearing the end of his shift. The factory is directly across the street from Wendy's house.
I was looking out the window. The only reason why they caught me eye is because I've never seen anybody call into the house before. I'm pretty sure the woman lives here, but I've never seen the man before.
Perhaps the man was going through the same routine. Perhaps he'd asked Wendy for pen and paper.
Hey!
I remember being called away to the machine for a few minutes. When I returned to the window, the guy was leaving. Didn't think much of it at the time.
Wendy's body was discovered the next day when she failed to turn up for work. She'd been stabbed several times.
One pair of blue shoes.
A pair of shoes at the scene didn't belong to Wendy. And some of Wendy's own shoes had been disturbed.
We've all been affected so deeply, it's more than you ever imagine. Our life is just on hold, really, until the man responsible is caught. Some days we were very angry, and some days we're just numb. And it's just my mum was such a big part of our lives that it's just difficult to see how your life can be normal again.
Is this working?
I just miss her all the time. She's on my mind all the time.
And may the love you share today be always of the best. These moments you will treasure because they mean the most. So let us raise our glasses, and while I propose a toast to the bride and groom.
Bride and groom.
Well, that was just last September at Wendy's daughter's wedding. Detective Superintendent Taylor, what was the motive for Wendy's death?
I'm quite satisfied that when this man knocked on Wendy's door, his intention was to sexually assault her, which he did, and kill her. And he came prepared and brought certain items with him to do that.
One of those items was a pair of shoes. What's the significance of those shoes?
Well, the shoes are vitally important to the inquiry, and it is very important that we find the owner of these shoes. They were left outside a charity shop in Wakefield on Saturday, the 12th of March. The assistant at the shop found them in a bag outside, took them in, priced them up, and placed them on the shelf, and does remember a man purchasing them later on in the day.
So that was just 3 days before the murder?
That's right, yes.
Do you know what size these are?
No.
Could you try them on for me, please? Do you mind?
No. It's too small for me.
Why, what size are you?
7. These must be a 5 or 6.
OK, I'll take them.
Now, we didn't use the actual pair of shoes in the film there. What did the actual pair of shoes look like? We've got a picture of them there.
Yes, the actual shoes were last manufactured perhaps 6 years ago and have RP Ellen Oxford Street on the inside.
So it's very important that the owner should contact you if
Yes.
they recognise that.
The owner who got rid of those shoes wherever in Wakefield, please contact us.
You need to confirm that the man who tried those shoes on is the man you're looking for.
We do indeed.
He also brought a piece of candlewick material with him.
Yes, this was part of what he brought to the scene. It is a candlewick bedspread, and firms in the area of Wakefield actually cut these up into rags and they are sold. And it might be another link in the chain to identify the man.
And a pair of stockings that he brought too.
Yes, he prepared a pair of stockings and tied loops in them about 15 inches down from the top, which, although he didn't use them, would have fitted over someone's wrists. And it may be that someone in the past can piece that together.
What sort of man do you think would commit a crime like this?
Well, we've spoken to offender profilers and witnesses, and we've put together what we think is a picture of this man. He didn't alarm Wendy, so he would be of normal appearance and voice. Normal intelligence. I think that he may be local, although I don't discount that he could be just a visitor to the area. One of the witnesses described the possibility of some dark bands around the top of the arms on his bomber-style jacket, which is the same as the prison service issue, and therefore he may have been a previous offender for sexual offences. And the most disturbing part of all is that it may form part of a series and he could well strike again.
So you think there may be a prison connection and that he may want to commit more crimes like this, which means it's really important to find him. What does he look like?
It's very disturbing, yes. His description is of a man 35 to 45, 5'6" to 5'9". He is receding with short light brown hair and greyish and balding.
I believe he had a Yorkshire accent too.
Yes, he did have a Yorkshire accent, and what we are seeking to achieve from Crimewatch this evening is to put all the pieces together of the stockings, the candlewick material, the description, and hopefully somebody can ring in and put a name to this man who must be caught.
Right, well, if any of those details seem at all familiar to you, I can't stress too much, please don't hesitate to ring. It's important to find this man as soon as possible. The number here, once again, is 0500 600 600, or you can call the incident room at Wakefield on free phone 0800 318 001. That's free phone 0800 318 001. Rosella Middleton, known to all her friends as Rossi, was a lively 83-year-old woman, determined to live a full and active life. Quite recently, she was mugged, but she remained as resolutely independent as ever. 7 weeks ago, she was murdered. No one knows why, and her local community is devastated.
Last Sunday, our sister Rossi worshipped with us here in church. This Sunday, we must do the same, but without her. I can hardly express what I feel. Her death has shocked and stunned us, and many in this community.
7 and 5, 75. 5 and 2, 52. Yes.
Rossi was born and bred in Birmingham. Her husband died 20 years ago, but her son Brian and daughter Janet kept in close contact, and Rossi doted on her 5 grandchildren.
Can I say a word about next week? No lunch club next week. But in 3 weeks' time, it's the outing for the pub lunch to Burton-on-the-Water.
Rossi spent a lot of her time travelling around on the bus network.
Good night. Oh, I meant to give you these, Chris. Thank you very much. Oh, there you go now. Safe journey home. Yes, thank you. Night.
She thrived on getting out and about and meeting people.
I was coming from Bingo, and I walked up the high street to catch my bus. I'm a bit nervous of waiting at bus stops for the buses, so I stood in Burton's shop doorway.
No spring about
No,
it
not
this year.
It's always cold when you're waiting for a bus, isn't it?
The man and the woman was having a good conversation, and they seemed to be very good friends.
The following day, Joy saw Rossi with the man again. This time she paid for his bus fare.
Mum's independence was very important to her. We implored her to be careful as to the time she went out, but it was practically impossible to stop her, you know. She just valued her independence.
Mum, where'd you put the sugar?
It's in the cupboard on the right.
It's Wednesday, April the 20th. That afternoon, Brian Middleton dropped in at his mother's for tea.
Ooh, that looks lovely.
This was the last time Brian saw his mother alive. During the course of that evening, Rossi was picked up several times on the city's security camera network.
£26, please. Mrs. Middleton came into the shop most evenings, and I've known her for about 14 months. She was a lovely lady, always had a laugh and a joke with us. She always used to ask us how we all were.
Hello, Mrs. Middleton. All right?
Yes, thanks.
That's good. You're not going to eat all that yourself.
Oh, I am. I'm going to sit in front of the television and eat every bit.
That's £1.20 then.
Could you get the money out for me,
How's the
please,
grandchildren,
Linda?
all right?
Oh, they're fine. You know, I'm great-grandmother now.
Are you really?
Yes, I'm going to bring you some photographs tomorrow.
Yes, put your change in the purse. Good night. Take care.
Yes.
See you tomorrow.
Hello. Same time, same place?
Yes. I've missed my bus.
Have you really?
Yeah, and Thomas should be here. I can't understand it.
I understood Thomas was the man who was with her the 2 previous evenings.
I wonder if you'd mind waiting with me.
Sure, no problem.
I think this is my bus now. Thanks for waiting with me.
Okay, good night.
This woman, Kathy, often caught the same bus as Rossi, and they'd sit together and chat. Tonight, though, she hadn't noticed her.
It wasn't until afterwards, as she stood up to get off the bus at Birchfield Tower, and she spoke to the driver, that I realised it was Rossi.
Kathy had sometimes seen a man in his 50s meeting Rossi off the bus, but tonight there was no one there, and Rossi walked off alone. Her flat was just a few steps away. Rossi's body was found there the following morning.
We can't help feeling anger at the way Rossi died. She was so regularly here with us. We can hardly believe that it's true, that we shan't see her again in her usual place.
Mr. Ross, why would anyone want to kill Rossi?
Well, we don't know. We don't know the motive of the murder. It could be theft and burglary, or it could be a sexual attack. We know that she was sexually assaulted. It may be that her attacker followed her into her flat, or it may be that she allowed somebody in the flat who she knew.
So nothing was missing from her flat, but somebody did leave a scarf behind.
Yes, we found this scarf in the flat. That does not belong to Rossi. I'm anxious to hear from anyone who knows anybody who's lost a scarf like this.
Or somebody might remember that somebody hasn't got it anymore.
That's right.
Let's have a look at the man she referred to as Thomas. Rossi was seen talking to a middle-aged man on several occasions. Yes. Are you happy that all those sightings are of the same man?
Yes, I'm sure it's the same man. I'm sure that the man is local to Birmingham, perhaps to Perrybar or Birchfield in particular.
What does he look like?
He's 56 to 60 years of age. He's below average height. He's broad and has got a bit of a beer belly. And on both occasions that he's been seen with Rossi, he's been wearing a navy blue mac.
He's quite likely to be a friend of Rossi's, of course, but unless he comes forward, suspicion is more likely to fall on him.
Of course, and we want that man to come forward.
He needs to be eliminated.
He does indeed.
What sort of person do you feel you're looking for here?
I think that we're looking for a local man, again local perhaps to Perrybar and Birchfield area of Birmingham, clearly a very dangerous man. The circumstances of this offence are so serious that it's upset a lot of my detectives, seasoned detectives on the team. This man is very dangerous and must be caught.
Well, Mr. Ross, thank you. There's a substantial reward as well. The number here for anyone who can help with any information at all is 0500 600 600. The direct line to the incident room in Birmingham is 021 626 6119. That's 021, the code for Birmingham, 626 6119.
Package, a late night walk through Leominster, a fire in Melville in Shropshire. These are all clues to a murder, and indeed they're about the only clues detectives have to go on. Trevor Bradley was described as a very ordinary bloke. No one can understand his death, except of course his killers, or perhaps there's something that you can add to make sense of the crime.
All right, mate, how's it going, mate? All right, Jake. Yeah, not bad. Is it on yet? No,
we were fixing the roof on the old military bunker. We looked up, saw smoke rising from about a mile away.
What's that over there? No, it's probably some form of burning science or something.
We thought nothing of it because usually we see a lot of fires in the country anyway, and carried on doing what we were doing. We heard the revving of an engine. Both looked up, and a red Peugeot 405 came past the shed very fast. You hear a car like that, and you see a car that speed, you didn't take notice. Basically, he was driving very dangerously.
He's a bit worried, isn't he? Fruitcake.
I walked up to it, just thinking it was joyriders, and saw it was still alight slightly and still smouldering. So I had a quick look and then went back home to phone the police.
Ben Sims thought he saw a body in the back, and by late afternoon a large investigating team had assembled in the field. The registration plates were missing, but detectives soon identified the car as registered in Ludlow. The owner, Trevor Bradley, had gone missing.
I wouldn't have said Trevor had enemies, not serious enemies, no. He wasn't that sort of bloke. Just a very ordinary chap.
I just can't understand what's going wrong. I can't understand it.
For someone to do that, they must have hated him. And Trevor's not the bloke to inspire hate from anybody.
Trevor came from a remarkably large family. He had 21 brothers and sisters. He had problems with his legs and often limped. The charity Motability had given him a Vauxhall Nova. He sometimes bought and sold old jewellery and bric-a-brac, but he didn't have a proper job and wandered round second-hand stores, principally to pass the time and look through books.
Trevor was a chap that liked to read. He'd go to charity shops and pick up books, and often come down and swap books with me. He was a very sensitive, shy type of person, but he always put a little bit of an outward-seeming personality over the top of this. He was always cracking jokes, for instance, and one thing and another. But I'm sure underneath it all, he used to be quite sensitive, and he'd hurt quite easily.
He was very lonely.
Mm.
He just needed a lot of company. He needed the company. I know he did. The one in the army was tall.
It wouldn't hurt to fly.
He wouldn't.
At around midday on Tuesday the 26th of April, one of Trevor's neighbours noticed he had company.
I was putting some rubbish in my dustbin, and I looked up and I saw Trevor going up the pathway with a big package. And just by the gate there was a woman with a child. She had red hair, about 50, 60.
If that was you, please call us straight away. You might, unknown to you, hold the key to Trevor's disappearance later on that day. At around 2:30, Trevor was some 30 miles from home in Shrewsbury town centre. Did you see him here? A waitress remembers that he visited the Bare Steps cafe.
He was a familiar face because he used to come in maybe once a week, twice. You get to know your regular customers.
Have we got some beef left?
Yes, we have. Would you like that in a sandwich?
Please, and a cup of coffee.
He didn't seem bothered about anything on that day, not any particularly different from any other day, really. He only stayed maybe 10, 15 minutes, and he paid and left, but I didn't see which way he went.
He almost certainly walked straight to the Parade, a local shopping precinct. Tapes there show him picked up by security cameras just after 3 o'clock. Did you see him in the Parade, or recall him in the streets nearby? At 5:15, he was back near the Bare Steps. Since his death, it's been established that Trevor was bisexual. Did you meet him at the lavatories in Butcher Row?
It's 10 to 7, so it's time now to play a few games of Cash Bingo. You can start popping those 20.
Trevor was a bingo fan, and by early evening he was in Leominster, not far from his home. Did you see him in the Top 10 club, or did he stay outside?
63, 63. 2 and 5, 25.
If so, was he waiting here to meet someone? Two people who'd been at the bingo are the last known to have noticed Trevor as they left at 10 p.m. and drove down Broad Street.
I thought he might want a lift, that he might have broken down. So we slowed the car down and he waved to us, acknowledged he'd seen us, and we thought he was all right.
What happened in the next 12 hours remains a mystery. Now, when Evans, since we finished doing that reconstruction, you've got a couple more witnesses, in fact, which place him a little further up Bridge Street, or just off Bridge Street.
Yes, just after 10 p.m. on Tuesday, the 26th of April, we've got two witnesses who put Trevor standing outside the public toilets just off Bridge Street. We'd be interested to know if anyone met him there, or in fact anyone who saw him after that time, particularly in his white Vauxhall Nova in the Melville area of Shropshire where his body was discovered.
Now, I take it we can assume that you will treat with the utmost discretion anybody who does come forward if they met him at the lavatories and had some sort of sexual liaison with him. They wouldn't want that made known in public.
Even if that person is gay, I would urge them to come forward, and any information they provide us with will be treated in the strictest confidence.
Now, you've no idea really on motive on this. It could be a gay liaison that went wrong, seems improbable. It could be sort of gay bashing. I know you've had one caller already, a month after the murder, the death, who said that was some sort of deal he'd done that had gone wrong. Now, tell me about that call, because it's quite interesting.
Yes, exactly 1 month after Trevor's death, an anonymous call was received at the incident room from a person who actually named persons who were involved in causing Trevor's death. Unfortunately, we've been unable to act on that information. We need more information, and I would urge that caller to call us again.
What, for specific questions that you've got to put, or just general ones?
I feel he has more information he can provide, and I'm sure he'll have the answers.
And will want to give them?
I would hope so.
OK, now, just let's make it clear, there was a very strong appeal implicit in that film about that red car we saw at the beginning, the Peugeot 405. You don't know that that was connected with the death, of course.
No, but we need to trace the occupants of that vehicle to eliminate them from the inquiry.
That was the morning of Wednesday, the 27th of April.
That's right, and that very same morning we've got sightings of a dark blue Ford Sierra in the Melville area. That vehicle contained 3 males described as being of a rough appearance, and we also need to eliminate them from the investigation.
OK, if you can help in any way, please do call 0500 600 600. It's a free call number, 0500 600 600. You can ask to speak to a BBC researcher if you prefer. But if you know something, suspect something, or saw something, do please call. Incidentally, there's a substantial reward, £5,000. The incident room at Shrewsbury Police Station is also waiting for your call, 0743 232 888. That's 0743, the code for Shrewsbury, 232 888. Victims, before they feel strongly that they want to help. Yet, of course, paradoxically, it's crime against lonely and vulnerable people that often leaves the fewest clues and rely most on public help. Our next case is one of them. On Thursday, the 3rd of March, a woman's body was seen beside a country road near Lutterworth in Leicestershire. Whoever it was had been murdered. She'd been left in the field in the early hours of the morning. But for several days, that's about all that anyone could establish.
OK, folks, well, it's over a week now since the body of our victim was found, and frankly, we're no nearer knowing who she is. Despite some good local media attention, we've had no calls or suggestions even who she might be. This may indicate she comes from out of area. The problem we're having with getting any national coverage, as you're aware, is the preoccupation with the Gloucestershire incident in the Nationals. To that end, we've decided to take an advert in the Sun newspaper to reach a wide audience. We're hoping that people will respond to the advert with suggestions as to her identity, and it may also lead to some national TV coverage.
Her physique could provide a clue. 5'1" and 13 stone. A size 22 dress, but 2.5 shoe.
I would appeal for anybody else who recognises the description.
I couldn't believe it was her on the television. I was absolutely, surprised.
So what's her name?
Her name is Tracey Turner.
And what's your relationship with Tracey?
My relationship with Tracey is a landlord and tenant relationship, but initially we were lovers at first. Well, I had a relationship with her, shall we say.
Tracey Turner was 30. From childhood, she'd suffered severe hearing problems. She overcame them with a deaf aid, which looked rather like a Walkman. She drifted into prostitution, first in Sheffield, then London, and 3 years ago she moved to Stafford.
Dear Mum, how are you? I just thought I'd drop a line to check how you are. I'm thinking of getting my hair cut.
She was quite a generous girl. She didn't bear any grudges. She used to bring little gifts and write nice letters. And she'd lend anybody a last penny. I just wished I'd have been there to hold her and tell her I love her.
Can you tell me, when was the last time that you saw Tracey?
The last time I saw Tracey Turner was on the 2nd at 2 o'clock, just before I was on my way back to London.
Hi.
Can you have some of that?
Yeah. Couple mug.
Oh, mug. Need waking up. Weather looks great out there.
Makes it change.
I think I'll go to the building society.
Tracey would always go to the Abbey National Building Society to draw out some money, which she would use to pay a minicab to take her to Junction 13 on the M6.
Do you know we've now got Tracey in Stafford Town Centre on the 2nd?
Yeah?
Yeah, she visited the Abbey National in the town centre about 5 to 3. All she knew was taking £5 out of a £6 account. And then she's seeing later about 3:30 in the Tesco's in the town centre as well.
We had quite a good picture of Tracey now. We decided to try and talk to other working prostitutes who use the motorways or motorway service areas, and in particular try and get any to come forward that knew Tracey.
I met Tracey on Knutsford service station when I was going to Carlisle about 5 years ago.
And what actually took place on the motorway services?
Well, we used to go in the toilets and change from our jeans into our working clothes, into our makeups, standing around talking. Never discussed the customers, and we used to go our own separate ways.
What sort of person would you say Tracey was?
She was kind and generous, sometimes very stubborn, and she liked her own company.
The picture that we're getting of Tracey is of a sad and somewhat lonely girl who would hitchhike great distances up and down the motorway network. This is probably as much for company as for the purpose of prostitution, although prostitution was probably a good way of making money for her. We're going to focus our inquiries on service areas up and down the motorway. We're going to be tracing drivers through credit card sales, also stop checking drivers with uniformed officers' assistants, talking to them and hopefully getting some sightings of Tracey on the night.
What time was it when you first saw her?
It would have been about 12:15 a.m. I was at the Hilton Park services on the southbound on the M6, crossing from the garage shop to my lorry. And I noticed her then. She was walking away from the garage towards the entrance onto the motorway. She got what appeared to be a Walkman around the neck.
Did you drive off immediately?
No, I sat for a bit. I ate some chocolate. I had a bar of chocolate. I ate my chocolate in the cab. And I could still see her then. By this time, she'd reached the slip road, more or less, and was up on the curb. As I was watching, she was, appeared to be trying to get a lift. I wasn't going to stop for her, because it's not my company's policy. And as I was pulling away to leave the area, a red car came off of the car park slip road, more or less cut me up in actual fact, went past her and pulled up further along the slip road and started reversing back to her. And as I've got past it, I've looked in the wing mirror and I've seen that it stopped by her and she's sort of leaning in and talking to the driver of it.
And you sure it was red?
Yeah, definitely red.
In fact, it was a red Mondeo, and its driver was traced through a petrol receipt.
Can I have a lift?
Where are you heading for, love?
London.
I just refuelled my car, and I saw this woman. She was standing there. I think I've seen her before, because I do use the services quite a lot. Right, after I left the girl, I travelled back up the slip road, back onto the motorway.
So who did pick Tracey up that night? Were you at Hilton Park service station driving south on the M6 just after midnight that Wednesday night, the 2nd of March? By 1 a.m, she'd gone. Dave Cox, when Tracey was found, her clothes had been removed, and of course this jacket was part of that, not been recovered.
That's right, it hasn't been recovered. We'd be particularly interested to hear from anybody who finds a similar jacket, particularly if it's with other ladies' clothing or tracksuit such as that. And Tracey's headphone and amplifier device are still missing as well.
Now there's one other clue that you've got, which you haven't revealed up till now, which is forensic evidence. I'm not sure how much you think it's going to help with the appeal, but it's sort of the last chance. Tell us about it.
Recovered from Tracey's body were some flecks of yellow paint. They were in her hair and on her back. The paint is quite distinctive. It's a yellow...
Here's a sample of it.
Yes,
it's
a yellow paint which is used for respraying plant or agricultural machinery.
Sort of thing you see on bulldozers, JCBs,
etc.
Yeah.
Plant machinery.
Now, it would have been, what, 9, 10, 11 years old at least, you
Yes,
think?
it's got a high lead content, so it's probably not in current use.
OK, so it's somebody who's got access to this sort of machine, this sort of vehicle. Now, there have been 2 other murders of prostitutes in sort of an area not all that far away. In Birmingham, the 3rd of December, Sam Paul was murdered. Then there's this one, Stafford, with her body left in Leicestershire. Then on the 13th of May in Sheffield, Dawn Shields. Now, I know you haven't formally linked these, but could it be somebody, just possibly, who's driving Leicester, Sheffield, Stafford, Birmingham?
That's a possibility that is obviously at the forefront of our minds. We would obviously appeal to anybody who has information on that to contact any of the incident rooms or come through to this programme.
OK, well, here's the number if you can help in any way at all. 0500 600 600. It's a free call here to the studio, or you can call the Murder Inquiry Room at Leicestershire Constabulary Headquarters. That's 0533 482 184. 0533 is the code for Leicester, 482 184. When somebody strangled her. She had a 4-month-old baby, and she and the father, Michael, were planning their wedding. She was likeable, she was straightforward, and why she was killed is a mystery that maybe someone watching can now solve.
It's the Cookie Monster.
She had a thing about car boot sales. Every time I went down a car boot sale, she would immediately go to the nearest store that had the baby clothes or the baby toys on.
We can always get round in you and me, can't we?
She was always pestering me for, you know, a couple of quid here and a couple of quid there, so she could go and buy those things, which made me laugh. We've been together about 2 years. She was a fun-loving person. She loved Sarah Louise. She was a good mother to Sarah Louise. She would have made a good wife for me as well.
Can you get some ice?
Yeah, sure. All right, if I have a flag while I'm down there.
Yeah, no problem. Sharon worked 3 nights a week at the Market Cross pub in Grantham.
Not so bad, are you?
There's not a job that she wouldn't do. You know, it's very hard to find people like that. She was one of the best. One of the best. And I miss her.
Tonight, police hope to eliminate a man seen by a friend of Sharon's a month before she died.
I was on my way to Woolworths when I saw Sharon at the rear of Morrison's in the passageway. She was stood with a man. They were talking quite intensely. I walked past them and carried on towards Woolworths. I came out 10 to 15 minutes later and walked over to the short wall by the passageway to have a cigarette. As I sat down, I saw that Sharon was still talking to the man. She seemed to move away from the man towards me, and he followed her. I did think Sharon looked relieved to see me.
Who's that? Doesn't matter.
She didn't want to tell me.
Don't do that.
So being nosy, I strained to watch him walk away.
If this was you, please call. Friday, July the 1st. Sharon was working at the pub and her boyfriend Michael worked nights, so Sharon's friend Emma used to babysit.
We'd known each other for about 6 years, and we just hit it off straight away. She's got a great personality.
You all right? Okay. I've just put him down.
She came around about 6:30, 7:15, like what she did every Friday.
If you need them, and I'll give you the key just in case you need anything else. Okay. So I'll see you at the usual time. Yeah, I'll see you later. Bye-bye, darling.
Just stayed for a couple of minutes.
See you later.
And then she went off to work.
Still going out Sunday night? Yeah, of course I will. Where do you want to go then, Dot? I don't mind, it's up to you. Should we start off the King's Arms to see how we go? Yeah, sounds great. Might be still looking after Sarah Louise. Yeah, bless her, it's good like that. Yeah, it looks nice. Did you do it yourself? Yeah.
It was just a normal, typical Friday night.
Yes, Doc, what can I get you?
Nothing unusual about it, and Sharon was in a really good mood.
Thanks a lot for coming along, ladies and gentlemen. Finish your drinks now, please, and start to make your way out the door. Thanks a lot.
After the last people have gone, we always have a drink at the end of the night.
I'm off mood.
Okay, see you later. Take care. One of the last people to leave was Sharon. Nothing out of the ordinary with her. She said cheerio when I see her go by the windows. It was the last time I saw her.
Got to the pipes in the morning as well.
Sharon often walked home. Did you see her when she left the pub shortly after midnight?
You okay?
By now, Emma and her boyfriend Simon were expecting Sharon back to pick up the baby.
No, you're all right for a bit longer.
Meanwhile, on Harloxton Road, not far from the pub, according to an anonymous caller, Sharon was arguing with someone outside Archway's garage.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Were you that driver? Please phone us now. You're a crucial witness. The caller described the man as being in his mid-30s and with long, dark hair.
A6, you want the Isaac Newton?
Next, a taxi driver noticed Sharon. She'd now gone back towards the pub and to a public phone.
I was travelling along Wharf Road towards the roundabout when I saw Sharon arguing with a gentleman outside the phone box. It seemed at the time that the gentleman was pulling Sharon away from the phone box if Sharon wanted to get into it. I noticed that the gentleman was wearing a white short-sleeved T-shirt and jeans, and he had shoulder-length hair. I'd arranged to meet Sharon at 8 o'clock to go shopping. When I arrived home from work, I noticed that the kitchen light was still on, which I found was unusual.
Sharon? Sharon? Sharon?
Next day, Sharon was discovered among undergrowth in a car park, not far from where she'd last been seen. She'd been strangled. Mr. Clifton, most points of appeal are pretty self-evident from that reconstruction, but perhaps what's not self-evident is you're very, very anxious to get that anonymous caller to ring again who saw Sharon just before she disappeared.
There were, in fact, 2 anonymous calls, both of which came in on Monday, the 4th of July, which was really the first day of this inquiry. And the information given by both anonymous callers was very, very similar. Now, there are 3 possible motives for those calls. The first is that it's an out-and-out hoax. The second, that it's the killer who's trying to lay a false trail. And the one that we actually favour is that the man who rang in actually saw what it was that he described to us. Because of that, we think that he probably saw the killer. So he's very central to our inquiry, and we need to speak to him.
Now, he may say to himself, but, you know, I've told you what I saw. Why do you need any more information?
Well, he told us that the man that he saw was about 30 years of age with long dark hair. But different people have different perceptions of what is long hair. For some, it'll be on the collar, for others, much longer. He also said that he'd seen Sharon with this man before. When? Where? These are the sort of questions that we need to put to this man.
And he plainly knows her well.
He does indeed. In fact, he claimed that on the second call, and we believe that the 2 calls are probably made by the same person, although that's not self-evident. On the second occasion, he said that he was so concerned about this argument that was going on that he slowed his car down and spoke to Sharon through the window of the car.
As we saw in that reconstruction there. He also said that he thought that the man was wearing a Leeds United T-shirt like this.
Yes, the first caller said that the man was 30 years of age with long dark hair and was wearing a white Leeds United shirt. Now, there are several strips, and this is one of them.
OK. Now, the man in Grantham city centre that we saw a month earlier, roughly a month earlier, sometime in June, this is somebody who looks similar to the description, I know, but this is really someone you want to eliminate from the inquiry.
Yes, indeed. There's no evidence at all to indicate that this man is anything at all to do with the murder. The mere fact that he fits the description of that given by the anonymous caller means that we need to trace him and eliminate him from our inquiry.
OK, Sharon was likeable, she didn't have an enemy in the world, no obvious motive for this. You need to find, I gather, anybody but anybody who ever knew her in any capacity.
Yes, we have traced a number of people. You're quite right when you say that no motive is clear. Certainly it's not clear to us what the motive was, although, as we've already said locally, that there are some items missing from the body. But we don't believe that robbery or theft is the actual motive. It's not clear to us what it is. We need to build up quite a comprehensive picture of Sharon's lifestyle. We're in the throes of doing that with a number of people, but anybody that can add new information, we'd be delighted to hear from.
Mr. Clifton, thank you. The number here is free. It's 0500 600 600. Please, if you knew Sharon, if you can help in any way, call us or try the incident room in Grantham. That's 0476 62501. 0476, the code for Grantham, 62501. We've some other progress to report and other cases too later in the programme. The island of Orkney is more isolated than almost anywhere in Britain. 45 minutes by ferry from John O'Groats off the northern tip of Scotland. It's not the sort of place you'd expect to see a major crime. And when one happened there this summer, it was a crime that would have been extraordinary anywhere.
Would you like to sit down? Now, what would you like to drink tonight?
Okay, I think I remember who's got what. 1 chicken tikka. 1 lamb tikka. I ordered that. Very good. And who's the chicken chat?
Oh, that's mine, thanks.
Hello.
Keep away! Bloody shoot us too!
When the gunmen came in, it looked like a fancy dress. When the gun went off and I realised it wasn't, it was a horrible thought to have your children there and not be able to do anything about it.
Shamsudden Mahmood was 26 and from a large and successful family. This was his second time working at the restaurant in Kirkwall, having seen the job advertised in London.
We're the murder, the monetised Indian restaurant.
I want you to preserve the scene, Bob. Make sure nothing's disturbed. I'll get an inquiry team together and get to you as soon as possible. The Northern Constabulary covers a vast area. Orkney hadn't had a murder for 25 years, and it was necessary to provide support from the mainland. A helicopter wasn't available to me, making it necessary to travel by road 150 miles from Inverness to John O'Groats. We then had to travel by ferry across the Pentland Firth. That's the nature of policing in the Highlands and Islands. So how is the Holmes computer link to the mainland going?
It's almost ready, sir.
And what do we know about Mr. Mahmood, Angus?
We know that he's been on the island for about 6 weeks. He was here last year for about 9 months, and at that time he was also working in the monetised restaurant.
Anything more you would like?
Not meantime.
Not just now?
He has no enemies that we can find, and we do know he has got a brother who lives in London.
He was a very brilliant student. The family wanted him to carry on with his studies. We cannot think why it should have happened to him. He was a very kind-hearted person. The sad thing is that he got killed at a time when he was about to go home and get married to his girlfriend.
We require teams to carry out inquiries at our airport and ferry terminals, to conduct house-to-house investigations in Kirkwall, and to re-interview all of our main witnesses.
Right, Marianne, what I want you to do for me is just if you could go over the events that happened in the restaurant, just in your own words.
I was showing 2 customers to the table, and I was just about to go back up to the bar for the menus when the door opened behind me, and I turned round to see who it was. And a man with a mask on came in. At first I thought it was a joke, but then I saw the gun in his hand as he went past me. He went up to the table where Shamsudden was serving the customers, and I heard a shot. I thought he was in to shoot everyone. And I heard the door open behind me, and he came out and went down the other lane. And the last I saw him was going down the narrow lane at the back of the restaurant.
We were driving down Junction Road at about 7:15, and as we turned into the car park, I saw a guy out of the window on my left. He had on dark clothes and had mossy brown hair.
As you're aware, the man that went into the restaurant was wearing a hooded sweat top, and he had a distinctive stoop. Down here at Junction Road Toilets, which is just down behind the restaurant, at about 7:10, we have a sighting of a man hanging about outside the toilets shortly before the murder.
Well, I was driving along Junction Road, heading towards the pier, and I was about to turn into the Albert Street car park when I noticed this chap just outside the door of the toilets on my left. He was wearing a hooded top, and I noticed he was wearing a balaclava underneath that.
Also, there was someone who saw a man walking from the direction of the toilets across the road in the direction of the restaurant.
George, the people of Orkney are very concerned about this murder. How can they help you with your inquiries?
I'm keen for anyone who was in Kirkwall on the day of the murder and who may have seen anything suspicious to come forward.
Can you tell me what time of day that was at?
It was about 5:10, and I was about to go down the lane past the monetised restaurant when this guy got down in front of me, and he turned to stare at me, which I thought was quite frightening at the time. The way he held his arms was like a bodybuilder. He was in his 20s, about 28 I would say, and his height would have been about 5'8" to 6 feet.
This sighting is of particular interest because of the similar physical characteristics to the person seen in and around the restaurant. But at the end of the day, we still haven't established a motive for this crime.
I'm always looking for an exit.
Daddy, I can't sleep.
It's okay, Daddy will take you through and tuck you in.
The effect it's had on our family since the incident is one of distrust. We have had difficulty going out in the evenings. Things are getting better now, and we hope the kids are getting back to normal. It's difficult to take in such a horrendous event.
Trojgoff, in the 4 months since this happened, you've obviously made extensive inquiries in the Orkneys. Now, how can a national appeal help?
Well, we hope to reach the people of Orkney with a visual reconstruction through Crimewatch, which may help to jog their memories. Also, of course, the programme will reach the remainder of Britain, where we hope to contact anyone who has been on holiday in Orkney. Orkney and Kirkwall in particular has a very industrious holiday trade in the summer.
Now, I know you haven't got a motive, but there was a possibility of motive in as much as the day before the murder there was a sighting of an argument going on at the restaurant, at the door of the restaurant.
Yeah, that's correct. About 8:30 the night before the murder, witnesses described to us that two people were arguing with the now deceased Shamsudden Mahmood outside the restaurant in the doorway of the restaurant. Now that may have an innocent explanation, but our inquiry has failed to trace these people.
Now, that was Wednesday the 1st of June. If we roll back 2 weeks, there was another sighting, this time rather more remarkable, in woods which are part of the town. Describe what happened there.
Well, it's an area known as Parkdale Woods, which is within the town of Kirkwall. Our witnesses described to us that a man was carrying out what appeared to be commando manoeuvres within the woods for no obvious good reason. Again, that might be an innocent pastime, but we would like to hear from the person to have it explained.
Obviously, then, we also need to find any other witnesses to the man outside the public lavatories. And we should explain that while we were filming, it was raining. Actually, the day of the murder, the 2nd of June, it was one of the hottest evenings of the year. Yeah. So his dress would have been most extraordinary, having a collar up, let alone a balaclava.
That's correct. The weather was so good that there's no good reason for having a hood up.
And the bodybuilder in the alleyway, now there's really nothing much to connect him with the crime. You really want to eliminate this man.
Again, as we've seen from the reconstruction, this man is of great interest to us, and unfortunately our inquiries to date have failed to trace him, and he hasn't come forward. If he recognises himself from the programme and is prepared to come forward with an explanation, that will be very helpful.
OK. Well, if you live in Kirkwall or if you were in Orkney at the time, please call if there's any way in which you can help. The number is 0500 600 600. That's a free call number in the studio, 0500 600 600. Or you can ring the Orkney Incident Room. That's on 0856 872 076. 0856, which is the code for Kirkwall, 872 076.
In the past 2 months, or maybe you've seen a Midland Bank Cashpoint card in the name of M.L. Gomez. If so, you may be able to help our London colleagues solve a murder.
Marina Koppell lived in Chiltern Street, central London. On Monday, the 8th of August, her husband was trying to contact her for much of the day. By that night, he'd called the police.
Can we have the duty officer? We've got a murder scene here, over.
What do we know so far, John?
Her name was Marina Koppell. She was 39 years old. Her husband couldn't get her on the phone, so he came round.
And he found the body?
Yeah, just in here, in this bedroom.
Marina had lived in Marylebone for some time.
Marina, she was a very nice lady. Course, breakfast for Marina. She's been coming into the shop for 10 or 15 years, probably.
fine. How are you, Eli?
She always had the same, which was egg, bacon and tomatoes.
So. Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah. As a customer, I would say that she was the nicest and more pleasant person you could find.
Can I have my usual?
Yes, sure. I just can't imagine her doing any harm to anybody.
Marina Koppell was 39 years of age. She came to London from Colombia about 15 years ago, and for the past 7 or 8 years had been practicing as a prostitute. She advertised her services as a masseuse in a number of local newspapers, as well as publications like What's On. She changed her first name and may have been known as Sandra, Rosita, or Maria. She was also known, as far as surnames are concerned, as Gomez, Angira, or Angelita. We have spoken to some of her clients, but it is important that we speak to all of them, and we would obviously prefer that those persons made themselves known to us.
On Monday the 8th of August, one of the last people to see Marina was her neighbour.
My name is Mrs. Miller.
I'm Marina.
How do you like your new flat?
I love it. I just moved in 2 weeks ago.
Have you found the shops yet?
She was my new neighbour. I thought it was a good time to have a chat. I thought she was very pleasant, very bright, and Marina offered to do shopping for me if I needed any. She had a car and it would be no trouble for her.
Very kind of you. I'll remember. Goodbye.
I never saw her after that.
Later that afternoon, we know that Marina went to the Midland Bank at Baker Street, where she can be seen on the security video. After that, we know little of her movements, but what I would ask for is that if anyone spoke to her, if anyone saw her, or indeed telephoned her that day, I would ask them to make themselves known to us. Marina telephoned her family in Colombia, and we know nothing about her movements after that time, other than later that day, approximately within the coming 8 hours, she was murdered. Nearby, in Bickenhall Mansions, not far from our scene, a blood-stained piece of blue cloth was found. It measures approximately 30 by 30 inches, and is probably best described as a small tablecloth. It may be that it's not connected with our inquiry, but it's important that the person who put that cloth under the car comes forward. Cases concerning the murder of prostitutes are notoriously difficult to investigate. We understand that people are reluctant to come forward and give information, and of course they have their own reasons for not to do so. But this was a particularly brutal murder, and we do appeal to the public to come forward and help us.
Marina had been repeatedly stabbed in a frenzied attack. Several items were missing from her flat. Among them is this Midland cash point card in the name of M.L. Gomez. It's been used 3 times since her death. If you've any information, please ring. There was also an NEC P3 mobile telephone, serial number 0216 00 13032. That's 0216 00 13032. The number would be on the back, here. And finally, you recognise this distinctive titanium bracelet. In fact, officers had to get this replica from America. If you can help in any way, please ring the incident room on 071 321 6754. That's 071 321 6754.
This in blue dungarees. These are the 2 main clues in our next case, the murder of Julie Pacey. And detectives can't work out who the man is, where the car comes from, or whether the 2 are in any way connected. Maybe you can help. It happened 5 weeks ago at the Pacey's home in Grantham in Lincolnshire.
How's it going?
Everything's almost ready.
Okay, well, the table's set. Anything else?
If you could put the bread out.
Helen, tea's ready.
Okay, coming. Matthew, tea's on the table. Be in a minute.
We always ate together every night. Always in the dining room.
How was football practice?
We got married in 1977, on exactly the same day as my mum and dad got married on. Julie was a wonderful person. She got on with everybody. She was so kind and caring and considerate. And that's the sort of person she was. She lived for the family.
Friday the 23rd of September, and Julie was at home as usual, because on most days a local girl stopped at the Paceys after school until her own mother got back from work.
I was walking down Longcliffe Road from my school when I saw a strange man walking into Mrs. Pacey's driveway.
Come in!
When I turned into the drive, I saw the man coming back. He was wearing blue dungarees and workman's boots, which were brown. He looked as if he was around 35. He was a fairly chubby man with a big round face, and it was all pink.
Do you want a drink?
Yes, please, Miss Pacey.
Yeah, then a man just came into the house. There was a knock at the door and I thought it was you, so I said, come in.
Julie later told her family how the man had asked for directions to Eskdale Road. Was that workman you? If so, for obvious reasons, please call and eliminate this line of inquiry.
Yeah, I'm PA.
3 days later, after the weekend, Monday the 26th of September, and that morning Julie was at her part-time job.
Julie had been working at the nursery since December '93. She was a very happy, bubbly person. She liked the children, and because she played so actively with them, they responded very well to her. That particular day I remember very vividly seeing Julie playing with a group of children. They were all very happy and they were playing, chasing bubbles in the garden.
Julie came home at about 2:45. Though the family car is an Audi 80, several people insist that mysteriously, on other occasions, they'd also seen her in a 5 Series BMW. In fact, at around this time, not far away, an acquaintance of Julie's was on her way out, and she's certain she saw the BMW again.
Driving along Longcliffe Road towards Manthorpe Road, I came up behind a blue-grey BMW. It was indicating to turn into Julie's driveway. I presumed it was Julie driving, as I'd seen her in a BMW before. As it turned into her driveway, I had to slow right down. As I glanced up the driveway, I saw her Audi parked there.
Julie left the house again that day. She was seen in Highcliffe Road, around the corner from her home.
I was just about to get into a taxi, having been visiting a friend on Highcliffe Road. I saw this man coming towards me in blue overalls. The car stopped for a moment and then carried down towards the junction of Longcliffe Road and indicated left. The man looked as though he was going to continue up Highcliffe Road, but ran back down towards the junction.
An hour later, Julie's daughter Helen was on her way home from school.
Hi, Mum, I'm home. Mum? Mum? Mum?
Her mother had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Superintendent Billingsley, this guy in blue dungarees, you've obviously got to eliminate him. He's been seen in this area over a period of several days.
Yes, he has, that's right. Between the Thursday before the murder, that's the 22nd, and the day after the murder, which is the 24th on the Tuesday, he's been seen on a number of occasions on that estate and also in Grantham, dressed in the overalls, and that's fairly predominant feature.
that he should be dressed in those, with a particularly red-faced, most of the witnesses describe him as.
He's wearing brown workman's boots, I gather. He's about 5'8", fairly sort of normal height, thinning hair, as we can see. He was asking directions a number of times.
Yes, that's right, and it was particularly interesting, I think, on the Thursday, because he was asking directions for an industrial estate that was far away from that Manthorpe estate, at the other side of Grantham. He didn't ask for any repeat directions, which is abnormal. There wasn't a vehicle seen, and he went away. And again, he was wearing these blue overalls.
Now, he was seen on the Thursday, on the Friday, not then over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
That's right.
He was seen, as we've just saw in that reconstruction, running back after the car nearly missed him on the Monday, just before Julie Pacey was murdered. But again, he was seen in the area on the Tuesday.
Yes, he was. That's fairly interesting, because it's between the Manthorpe estate and the next residential estate, which is the Orchard Tree estate. A man was seen at 10 to 9, that's the following morning after the murder, kicking the grass as if he's looking for something. And again later that day he's in Grantham town, going into a shop and acting totally suspicious by the shopkeeper in his actions. And again dressed in the boiler suit, or that type of overall, blue overall, and again with a red face.
Well, it might be obviously entirely innocent, as might this blue BMW. Quite bizarre, this, that the family is adamant that Julie never had access to a blue BMW, and so many people on the estate say they've seen her in it. Sometimes, I think one was 7 or 10 days before the murder.
Yes, that's right. You're absolutely right. The family are adamant. There is no association that they can tell me about which puts the BMW with that household. And yet there are people who knew Julie, who knew Julie's car, the Audi, albeit that it was the same colour. They know that she had an Audi. They've seen the Audi next to the BMW, in fact, on the driveway. So there's no doubt about the existence of that.
And on the afternoon of the murder, that's Monday the 26th of September, a BMW of that description, blue, perhaps blue-grey, seen speeding away from the estate towards Grantham.
Yes, on 2 occasions, at 3:20 on that day, leaving the estate, and as you quite rightly say, pulling off towards the Grantham. And then again, just before 4 o'clock, another car, again described as a 5 Series BMW, driving fast along Longcliffe Road.
Very fast?
Very fast.
I take it if somebody comes forward and says that was me, you're not going to do him for speeding there?
Absolutely not.
You need to eliminate that as well. And if you can tie any of these events together, either the man, if that was you, or if you have any idea who that might be, or the car, if you can explain that, here's our free call number, 0500 600 600. We're live, of course, the lines are open. If you can help, please call us now, 0500 600 600. Or you could try the incident room direct, 0476 62501. That's Grantham, or 0476 62501.
Which has been baffling officers in Leicestershire since it happened 10 weeks ago. Ken Brown was 55 and he'd been in the hotel, pub and restaurant trade most of his working life. On August the 25th, Ken was shot dead at his home. The 40 officers assigned to the case have questioned Ken's associates, both past and present. Their inquiries have taken them all over the UK and to countries abroad, but the motive remains a mystery. All that is certain is that somebody, for some reason, wanted him dead. The team's hope is that somebody tonight can tell us why. Our reconstruction begins on Monday, August the 15th, 10 days before Ken died.
Let's have you. All of you. There you are. Come on, here you are. Where are you? There you are. Come on, girls.
Ken shared his house in Barrow-on-Soar with his long-standing friend Graham Bailey. The two men had become business partners in 1988.
If I don't leave the airport right now, I'll miss my flight.
On the morning of Monday the 15th of August, Graham set off for a fortnight's business trip abroad.
I've known Ken for around 12 years. He was the best friend that I've ever had, and ever likely to have had. He was a very considerate chap to me, up front, in front of all his staff and workforce, and some of the business deals we've done in the past. He may well have been seen as a very ruthless business person, but behind closed doors, when he goes home at night and he's feeding his chickens and his geese and his dogs, and he's walking around the fields with his cattle, is the softest person you would ever wish to come across.
The businesses ranged over 4 counties, from Yorkshire down to London, and most of Ken's working days were spent on the road visiting them all.
Hello, Katie.
Hey, Jeff. Everything all right?
Yes, great, absolutely. Yeah.
How's Sue?
Very well, thank you. Very well, yeah.
He was a very generous man, to the point that one of our members of staff unfortunately had a fall and she had to go off work for a while. He sent her flowers. He was always asking about her all the time. He made a point that when she came back to work that he went and seen her, went in the kitchens to see her, made sure she was all right and that sort of thing. He always thought of his staff all the time, all the staff.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Brown. Are you all right? Not bad, thanks. Here.
Everything's going well?
Yes, very well.
Yeah. What are the bookings like tonight?
Tonight, Thursday night, very good actually. There's over 100 in.
On Tuesday, the 23rd of August, Eleanor Jenkins had been shopping. As she drove home around midday, her route took her along Walton Lane, where Ken and Graham lived.
A light-coloured Mercedes just came from out of nowhere, really, behind. And, well, I didn't even realise it was there till it was halfway past me.
And that Mercedes was to be seen twice more over the next 2 days. Ken rarely went out in the evenings. His regular routine was to feed his babies, as he called his animals, at about 8 o'clock, and then an hour later he'd go back and lock them safely in the barn for the night. At around 10 o'clock the following evening, Wednesday the 24th of August, these two women, driving close to Walton Lane, saw a white Mercedes waiting to pull out of a farm track.
It was a white L-Reg Mercedes, the new L registration Mercedes, 4-door saloon. Well, my friend, she said, he's flashing his lights. Does he want us to stop? And I said, well, I'm not stopping along a lonely road like this. If he wants us to stop, he'll wait until we get into the village and then we'll see if he's still flashing his lights. I would imagine as he overtook us and went on up the road, the speed was between 70 and 80 mile an hour.
That Wednesday night, Graham phoned Ken from his hotel.
Ah. Yeah. Is that all right, good or bad?
I would ring Ken most evenings, and we would speak for maybe up to an hour about the general business.
Well, no, I don't agree, quite frankly.
10 miles away, some 6 hours later. It's now the early hours of Thursday, the 25th of August. Terry Branston was patrolling at Murphy's Lake at Thurmston on the lookout for poachers.
Morning, lads. Broom angling, water bailey. Yeah. Can you tell me what you're doing here, please?
Just waiting.
You're not fishing.
Yeah, mate, we're just waiting for a mate. We're going to go night fishing with him.
Yeah, well, you're not supposed to be here. It's members only. Are you members?
No, mate, we're not members, no.
Well, the thing that made me suspicious was they got a bonfire. There wasn't fishing, so therefore they shouldn't have been there. So there was, if there wasn't fishing, there was up to something.
I'm sorry, but you just have to go.
We're only here to meet you, mate.
Who's that then?
It's called Samo.
All right, me old cock sparrow, we'll leave. Before we do that, do you know the area? Oh, born and bred here.
Yeah? What I want to know if there's any night fishing up here at Barrow-on-Soar. I think it's called Proctor's Pleasure Park.
Barrow Deeps, that is.
Yeah.
Just there.
Terry noticed that an area on the map was ringed in blue biro, a stretch of land close to where Ken lived. He tried to get a look at the Astra's registration number.
I just got the first 3 figures of the number because they got a poncho draped over the bonnet which covered the last 3 figures. The only figures I could get was A832.
Later that Thursday, Ken arrived home after his day's work at around 5 o'clock.
Sandy, Goldie.
3 hours later, shortly after 8 o'clock in the evening, Eleanor Jenkins saw the white Mercedes again.
He just come flying out of the giveaway without looking in either direction. And I very nearly hit him. I know it was the same car. I think it's the size of the car, the way it was driven, as I was in quite a rush.
At around the same time, Ken was on the phone to Graham's mother.
Oh, well. I have to come and put the babies to bed. And don't forget, I'll be around at 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Bye.
If Ken followed his normal habit that night, he'd have gone out to settle the animals at around 9 o'clock. Andrew Nash lives at the end of a narrow lane a few hundred yards from Ken Brown's house.
As I was driving down the lane, about 9:30, the headlights swung round into the field, and I saw two people, one of which I saw the face of. I've only ever seen farm workers walking through there. It's very unusual. When I got out of the car, the men obviously weren't visible because they ducked into the trees. And although I was fairly startled, I presumed at the time that they were just up to some form of mischief, and so simply just walked into the house.
The next morning, Ken's body was found in the barn. He'd been shot in the chest at point-blank range. Well, Detective Superintendent Cox, you have one really important forensic clue, don't you?
Yes, the type of ammunition used in the murder was very unusual. It was a modified shotgun cartridge where the cartridge had been opened and the lead pellets had been melted down to form a single slug about the size of a ball bearing and then repacked using components from an Ely LG cartridge. Now that may mean something to people who are in the shooting fraternity. Ely LG cartridges are very rare. In fact, only about 1,000 a year are manufactured for use in the UK.
Right, so anybody who knows somebody who uses Ely LG ammunition, you need to hear about them so you can eliminate them from the inquiry.
Well, certainly anybody who knows anybody who modifies ammunition using those parts, yes.
Right. You also need to eliminate the owners or the drivers of that light-coloured Mercedes, which was seen several times in the days before Ken's death.
Yes, it was seen 3 times, perhaps the most significant being the night before at 10 o'clock when it emerges from a lane which goes to the rear of Ken's premises and would have overlooked the premises.
And then the 2 men at Murphy's Lake early on the morning of the day Ken died.
Yes, these are two men. One is described as having a London accent. He's about 6 foot tall, with close-cropped ginger hair, a very stocky build. The second man with the northeastern accent is somewhat smaller, wears a black baseball cap with a Nike motif on it. They certainly have some very good quality army equipment, according to the water bailiff.
Are they possibly the same men, do you think, who were seen lurking in the trees that evening?
Well, I'd be very interested to know that. The 2 men seen in Burt and Bandles Lane are about 800 yards from Ken's house as across the fields. And they have no real reason to be there. If they were just poaching, I would appeal for them to come forward so that we can eliminate them from the inquiry.
And finally, you're very interested in the fact that somebody saw a Land Cruiser type of vehicle parked outside Ken's house at around the time he died.
Well, we think it's around the time he died. Ken didn't make a phone call at about 10 o'clock that we would have expected him to make. He was a man of regular habits, and he would have run Graham Bailey at 10 o'clock, which he didn't do. A lady going home at 10 o'clock saw a 4-wheel drive type vehicle parked outside the house, and that may be an absolutely vital sighting.
So if anybody recognises that, please do call. But if you can shed any light at all on this case tonight, please don't hesitate to ring. We're here until midnight on 0500 600 600, and you can ring the incident room direct if you prefer on 0533 484 002. There's a reward in this case. The number 0533 for the incident room, which is the code for Leicester, 484 002. The case has baffled police for more than 8 months. It's the inexplicable murder of an elderly man, Ron Cousins, in Chelmsford. Police have talked to nearly 1,000 people in house-to-house inquiries, another 260 in stop checks in the street, and they've taken nearly 600 statements. Neighbours and acquaintances have been more than willing to help, but all to no avail. This appeal to Crimewatch viewers is frankly their last hope of finding whoever was callous enough to have killed a frail old man. Our reconstruction begins in the house next door to Mr. Cousins in the small hours of the day Ron died. On Saturday, April the 16th, the couple next door to Ron, David and Angela Bailey, left home early in the morning. They were off to France for the weekend.
It's a funny noise. Can you hear it?
Yeah, it sounds like it's coming from Ron's bathroom.
I think it's a bit early to wake him up, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, we're running late anyway. Let's go.
Right.
Ron was born in this house, 5 Anchor Street. He'd lived all his life here. Closest to him was his widowed sister, Ruby, who lived nearby.
He loved people. You couldn't forget him. He was kind. That's the impression you get. He was kind. He'd do anything for anybody.
Hello, Ron. How are you, mate?
Hello, mate. How are you?
Nice to see you again.
Nice bit of green there.
Yeah, not so bad.
The day of Ron's death, Friday, April the 15th, would seem to have started normally enough.
Hello, my dear. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
All right. How's hubby?
He's fine.
Good.
You're going to be busy?
Oh, yeah. Look what they gave me round at the anchor.
That is nice,
Pretty,
yes.
I'm going to get it framed.
Yes.
They look nice hanging up in my front.
Near enough everybody in the market knew him.
The South End of the weekend.
He was the sort of man that you would like to have for your grandfather, because he was such a nice old boy. He was lonely, you could tell that, but he was nice, and I just got the, you know, sometimes the feeling just came that you wanted to take him home and look after him.
Later, he went to the Christchurch Day Centre, one of several church-run drop-in centres he frequented. He thrived on the company. Anne helps to run the centre.
I was always pleased to see him. He used to love coming for his lunch, and he was a kindly, lovely old man. He never grumbled. He's always happy, had a smile for you. If there was somebody there to listen to him, he would always chat. And he was just glad that he was able to be out and about amongst people.
Julie works as a secretary at an office in Anchor Street.
Won't be a minute, Jo. I'm just going across to the post box, all right? Okay.
Late that afternoon, she saw Ron in the street, making his way home.
I'd only gone round the corner a couple of steps, but as I turned, I noticed Ron coming from the direction of the town, from the New London Road end. I always felt I wanted to stop, just to make sure he was okay.
Can't wait for the weather. I mean, if it's raining, I don't mind.
He had such a cheery personality.
Yeah, I know.
He never grumbled about anything. And he always wanted everybody to enjoy life. He never preached about anything. He obviously knew there was nasty people out there. There was bad in the world, but he could never ever see it in anybody.
You ought to get in and make yourself a nice cup of tea.
It's a good idea. Who could do with a cuppa now? Right, I see you.
And with that, I just told him to look after himself, and then he went down the back alley to the back of his house. And that was, unfortunately, the last I saw of him.
Shortly before 6 o'clock, Peter Morgan left work and headed for his Friday evening workout at the local gym, also in Anchor Street.
I saw a young man standing near the junction. He was about 5 foot 8 inches tall. He was slightly built and had long hair. As I looked at him, he turned away, and I thought he looked a bit suspicious. It was as though he didn't want me to notice him.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Half an hour later, as Joanna Stevenson took her daughter to a German lesson, she saw a man fitting exactly the same description.
There was a man standing outside the terraced houses, right opposite where I turn into the car park. He seemed to be looking up the alleyway between the houses.
See you about 7.
Five minutes later, she remembers the man was still there. He was staring up at number 5 Anchor Street.
This time he was looking up at the bedroom window and then looking down again. He was still there as I pulled out and drove off home.
Right, Alan, I'm finished. I'll see you next week.
Peter Morgan had been in the gym nearly 2.5 hours. It was 8:10 when he left and walked down Anchor Street.
I saw this young man again. It was definitely him. But I was a bit surprised that he was still there after 2.5 hours.
This time the man had moved to the end of the street, about 100 yards from Ron's house. No one is known to have seen or spoken to Ron that evening, but usually he'd watch television and read his Bible.
More on Newsnight on BBC 2 at 10:30, but that's the 9 o'clock news tonight. Good night.
Next door, the Baileys had an early start ahead of them for their trip to France in the morning.
Once the news was finished at 9:30, we went straight to bed. I think it was about 9:45. I was just dropping off and I heard some knocking on Ron's door. And I remember thinking, I wish they'd shut up because some of us have got to be up early in the morning. And it stopped and I dropped off to sleep.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
In the morning, a couple living 2 doors away were concerned to see Ron's curtains still drawn.
Yeah. Do you think Ron's all right? It's 10:30.
He'd be up by now. Do you think you'd better go and check? Could be anywhere.
The bath was overflowing and the house had been ransacked. Ron had been strangled and stabbed.
You couldn't imagine anybody doing that to Ron. He was so, he wouldn't hurt a fly. I miss him coming round, I miss going out with him. There's a blank. I expect I shall always miss him.
Well, Detective Superintendent, why would somebody want to do that to Ron?
Well, I don't know, really. He's an old man. He hadn't got any enemies as far as I know. He was in the habit of inviting people back to his home address, however, and maybe somebody came back that he fell out with, or maybe a robbery was the motive. I really don't know at this stage.
So it needn't be a local person, you think?
Oh, indeed not. He was in the habit of inviting anyone back to his home, and it could be somebody from outside the area.
Was anything missing?
Well, we had a search of the house and we can't determine that anything was missing. We found £700 hidden in the house, so obviously whoever the person was, they didn't find that money.
Now, the most important thing, of course, is to find the man that so many people saw that night, standing outside his house.
Yes. This man is described as being in his early 20s. He's about 5'8" to 5'9" tall. He's a slim man and he's got long, straight hair, which comes down to his shoulders but curls up at the edges. He's dressed in a beige colour, grey colour, loose-fitting jacket.
It's a busy area there, so other people may have seen him too.
Very, very busy part of Chelmsford, and anyone could have seen this man lurking in the area.
The other thing you need to know is who may have called at Ron's house that evening.
Yes, there was a knock at the door at about 10 o'clock, we think. Clearly, we would like to identify who that person was knocking at his door.
Is there anything else you can deduce about Ron's killer?
Well, there was a lot of paint left in the address, and a lot of blood was left at the scene. Clearly, this person will be covered in paint and will be covered in blood.
A burglar alarm go off and done nothing about it. And the trouble is, of course, there are so many false alarms. Even so, a bell or a siren going off generally makes us more observant, and that might help to solve the case we're showing next. 7 weeks ago, Kath Hempsall triggered her alarm at home in Lincoln, and detectives now need help to find her killer.
New Year's Eve at Kath's house had become quite a tradition, and the old microphones came out at the drop of a hat, really. We weren't that musical. We just enjoyed singing, especially after a few drinks. It was a good time. We had fun.
Kath Hempsall was a part-time midwife. She lived with her husband and 7-year-old daughter on Lincoln's busy inner ring road.
Oh no! Oh, just missed it.
Hey, Daddy, I'm eating Mummy.
Kath's life revolved around Andy and Louise. She was devoted to her husband and especially to her child.
Handed stuff. You didn't mention the commercials.
Louise! Here, put your shoes on, Pat. Hello? Oh, Liz, is everything all right? Yeah? Yeah. Oh, Louise, go and brush your hair.
Yes, I think they're going to give me a perm. They can see me about 9:15, which means I could get to you about 10:30, maybe 11.
Yeah, I've got one job to do after I've dropped Louise off, and then I should be back here about 9:30. Yeah. OK. All right. See you later, then. Bye.
Louise, hurry up with your clothes. Yes, Mum.
Have you got your lunchbox?
Yes, Mum.
It's near the block of flats. Excuse me. Can you take a seat a minute? I'll be with you in a minute. Contact the RAC.
Looks like they're off school for the rest of the week.
Yes, we're worried about reducing...
We'd been in doctor's surgery. My son had a chest infection, and we were rather worried about it.
By this time, Kath had dropped Louise at school, had briefly been into town, and was now on her way home.
What a hideous colour. Can you believe people should have such colours?
My son was he had a very down sort of mood, and I was really trying to cheer him up. That's why I kept noticing things and chatting to him. I wonder if that's... Oh, it's all right. There's a car in the driveway. I found it's in a remarkably good condition for its year. It's a white rich like this one. And it was then that I became aware of someone running along the pavement. It's all right, I'm not going to run you over. I know where the brake is. But he shot off towards the rear of the white Transit. And that was the last I saw of him.
Well, I did say I'd get to my sister as soon as possible.
I'll get you out for about 11 at the latest, I should think. OK? Give it to Liam right the way back.
Two traffic policemen happened to be driving by and heard the alarm.
Made a very thorough search, really, but couldn't see anything disturbed or anything that seemed strange, so we returned to Lincoln Police Station.
How long were you there?
We left just after 10, was there about 10 minutes in all.
Yep, OK. I'll see if I get hold of a key holder for you.
I'll leave that with you.
All right, bye now.
Although the police had heard the alarm, they didn't know a panic button had been hit.
Hello, police. I'm really worried about my sister. She lives at Longdales Road. I've been round there myself, and she's just not answering. The car's sitting there. The alarm bell's going off. She must be in. It's just not... I'm really worried about her. I don't know what's going... There must be something terribly wrong.
The police found Kath in her hallway. She'd been stabbed over 30 times.
I was prepared for a shock because I knew already that something was wrong.
Can you just stay in the car? An officer will be with you shortly, OK?
I don't know when the realisation of the way in which she had been killed hit me. I really don't know. Sometimes I wonder if it still hasn't.
Tom Coates is the head of Lincolnshire CID. It was actually a fairly foggy morning that morning, Tuesday, October the 11th. That chap running across the road, though, is by far your best clue, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's very important to us. He may have, of course, been there quite innocently, and if he was, then we would like him to come forward. He may have been waiting for a bus or waiting for somebody else.
How good a description have you got of him?
Well, it's quite a good description. He's 17 to 25 years of age, 5'8" tall, slim build, pale complexion, wearing scruffy clothing and most insignificantly a woolen hat.
Now, somebody like him was obviously hanging around that area for an hour or so because someone was seen by the phone box about 300 yards down the road.
Yes, they were. There was a man seen of similar description near the telephone box, and several other people have also told us about him being seen in the area.
Now, apart from that man, the other distinctive thing that was sighted was this white Ford, probably Ford Transit, this Y-registered vehicle. Now, what do we know about this? It was there for some time too, wasn't it?
It was there for quite a long time, certainly all the time that we were interested in. And it's a white van, it's described as a transit, but it may be another vehicle of a similar type, similar shape.
Again, you need to eliminate that if that was a delivery or someone hanging about there for a perfectly innocent purpose. Someone was also seen in the driveway of the house. This could have been mistaken for one of the police officers who were investigating it, but maybe not.
It could have been, but the witnesses have described a man of 40 to 55 years of age being in the drive, and if the person was there, we'd like him to come forward.
And a woman walking some dogs, a potential witness you need to find very quickly.
Yes, a woman with 2 small dogs walking along the road. We would like her to come forward. She must be able to identify herself.
Well, if that was you, if there's anything where you can help, 0500 600 600. It's free here to the studio, 0500 600 600. Or you can call the incident room in Lincoln. That's on 0522 558 542. That's 0522, the code for Lincoln, 558 542.